I'd like to gavel in our workshop session to discuss the rec center renovations or survey, or however we want to at least get this meeting started. Just to give a little background, the process for the rec center started over 4 years ago. We initially wanted to look at, we knew that we needed to do some major improvements, if not replace the roof to the rec center, some additional work and to some of the original equipment that was put in there 30 plus years ago with respect to HVAC and air conditioning, heating, the ice rink itself, and some other major maintenance and really requirements that need to be done to the building. Most specifically, ADA compliance issues, again, because the building is so old, as well as bringing it up to code with respect to our current fire suppression systems that would be required for a building of that size that wasn't required when it was built, again, 30 plus years ago. We did one survey, again, to start this process off. That survey was completed. We worked on coming up with some of the recommendations. We hired an engineering firm by the name of GBA Engineering. They did an analysis of the building for us, went through, made recommendations on other maintenance items that needed to be completed. They did have a report that they produced to the board. That was, do you remember the date?
2011.
Huh?
2011.
It was in 2011 that they've had their final report. And we just really haven't been able to come to a consensus since then on how to proceed, although it's still a number of these items do need to be taken care of. Then last year, starting in May, we started meeting an hour prior to each Board of Alderman meeting, like we're doing tonight, to try to come to some resolution. I think at our August meeting last year, the board decided to do an additional survey to try to answer some additional questions. That process took until our last meeting. The presentation was made on the survey. So now we're back trying to figure out the best approach in making the improvements and renovations to the rec center. I think well, I'll open up to the board if they want to make any comments with respect to the survey at this point.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Can we do roll call?
Oh, well, for the workshop, sure. Roll call, I'm sorry.
Alderman Harper.
Here.
Alderman Nguyen.
Here.
Alderman Robertson. Alderman Kramer. Alderman Tui.
Here.
Alderman Leahy.
Here.
Alderwoman Manister.
Here.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Here.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. So I'll open up if anybody wants to. Well, then I'll start. One of the things that we had done actually back in the 90s, this isn't a topic that hasn't been discussed many times at many different levels over the last probably 15 years. One of the major issues going back into the mid-90s that we thought was holding the rec center or the ice rink back was the condition and the size of the locker rooms in the building. They're very old, very small. This goes back to when the Blues were actually leasing our rec center for their practices. That was designated as a major issue and kind of something that was holding the rec center back a little bit with respect to status and ability to rent out to larger groups and those kinds of things. The other so what we did back then, we actually had a design done, hired an architectural firm to look at how we could. Another major issue brought to us with staff was that we had two different entrances into the rec center. One being going into the ice rink and one being going into the meeting area, where really all of the offices were for the staff, the park staff. So we hired an architectural firm back then. They looked at the facility. Again, this was 15 plus years ago, so it wasn't in the condition it is today. Didn't have some of the ADA requirements that we will have today. But they evaluated the facility, came up with a concept to, one, renovate the locker rooms to make improvements there, which still to date has not been done, and then also to enclose basically the patio area, which I would call in front of the ice rink, up around the main entrance to the meeting rooms, and make a single entrance into the facility, bringing those two areas together so that we could consolidate staff and work more efficiently from that standpoint. And then that project or that idea got scrapped or just was never any action taken on it. So I would really like to try to find that proposal, find that plan, bring that back to the board and see if that's something that we would be interested in trying to proceed with, along with the recommendations of GBA on some of the mechanical and ADA and other improvements that we want to do to the facility. My recommendation, and I think I said this prior to the survey last year, is that the voters or the residents don't want to support a bond issue in order to do this. I think what we need to do is really come up with this plan. We need to allocate. It may be a 5-year plan in order to get these improvements completed, but we need to phase them in so that we can do it out of our general revenue, or maybe through a small COP in order to make these improvements ones that need to be done right away, and then try to proceed down that line. Another thing, I think we have an advantage with the passage of the countywide tax increase on the parks that the voters approved in April. The municipal park grants will have an additional $3 million in their allocation going forward for the next, I guess, 10 years or so for that till that tax sunsets. And so we could apply for, I think, a pretty good portion of this, maybe the enclosure part or some of the ADA requirement parts through the park grant to help fund some of those improvements as well. So I think we have some options out there, but I really think that we should be able to do this. If we put a process in place and a schedule in place, we could do it out of our general revenue for the most part. Just to give the residents some idea, in the GBA report, just to replace the doorknobs and pulls on the facility right now to make them compliant with ADA is in excess of $75,000. And that's something that we really don't have a choice. It's something that we need to do. If we're going to make any kind of improvements, we have to make those improvements to bring those up to our current codes. These aren't small undertakings that we're talking about, but I really think we need to make a decision and try to move something forward and put a plan in place. Alderman Saunders?
I think that sounds like a good place to start. I just want to, if we can just get a consensus on, like, from the study, the survey, that we realize that the residents are very satisfied with the co-op agreement. And so, like you say, we bring the ice rink, Richmond Heights brings the fitness center, and Maplewood brings the outdoor pool. And I think it's a good relationship, and almost 80% were in favor of keeping that. As long as we're in agreement on that, I think that's a good place to start.
I'm going to disagree with that and say that really what we're looking at is Band-Aids on a building that's completely obsolete in most respects. We're going to have to spend a substantial amount of money regardless of what we want to do. To get systems that are almost 4 years old replaced is going to be expensive. I think if we go for an incremental increase above that, we can get something that we can actually be proud of, because keeping what we have and just sort of putting a coat of paint on it is really not going to be all that satisfying to the city's residents. It certainly wouldn't be to me. It's going to take several $1 million to do what has to be done. Why don't we just spend a little more and do something that's worth doing, is my opinion.
Alderman Saunders.
Maybe I wasn't saying that clearly. I agree, like at that meeting when we had the presentation at Public Works, I think we basically can keep the footprint, but I understand about bringing out the entrance to give the building more aesthetically appealing. And two, we did agree too, the rooms in there are very dark because it overlooks the ice rink. So I'm not saying that we just exactly leave the building as it is, you know, modernize it, but leave the ice rink as part of it. And then I just don't see the need for the fitness center personally. Now, other aldermen may disagree, but since we have that relationship and the community seems satisfied with that, I think we should go forward with the ice rink. The next thing that was first when you did combined scores was the multipurpose room, which is what we already have. But I would agree that the building itself is very dated and you know, people don't like to meet or host in those rooms because they are very dark and.
May I?
Absolutely,
I apologize for
Alderman.
being late. There was a pretty bad accident on the highway, 20 minutes on the highway, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I was coming back from Columbia. It was just in the last quarter mile of my trip that this happened on the McKnight off-ramp. So I guess what I'm saying is we won't have a community center. We will never have a community center if it's an ice rink and meeting rooms. You know, that we've identified throughout the recreation assessments that people would support, depending on cost and depending on other situations, having their own community center. And I'm surprised, Maureen, that you don't support it more strongly because you're always talking about the comprehensive plan and people's desire to have a town center. We're not going to have a town center. This building isn't capable of supporting that. And really, it's just, I think it's a lack of vision. And I've got the study from 2 years ago right here. I mean, we should all study this, and obviously we're not going to make a decision tonight, but I mean, we've got substantial fire sprinklers, roofing, all the systems. You know, the utility improvements in the building alone should pay for themselves in hardly any time. But we cannot spend less than several $1 million. I mean, doing out of general funds and a COP isn't going to happen. We're going to have a combination of financing things, and I think that's what we need to get into more than anything right now and talk about it. You know. So if you'll give me another second, I'm sorry.
Oh, sure, no.
I mean, yeah, we disagree. I disagree with the mayor.
Right.
I disagree with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm not claiming to be a person that goes to the Heights all the time. I don't.
Right.
Not nearly enough. But it is extremely busy most of the time. The gym is always booked up. The workout area is always booked up. You know, they still are studying the idea of adding to it, and I'm sure they're waiting for us to tell them what we're going to do. You know, they're not going to build something if we're going to build something. But, you know, it's not duplicating what they have. It's adding to the market, you know, something that could be a town center. You know, it's not just a workout room, you know, public space, everything else that we're talking about is in this plan, you know, in a schematic sense.
Alderman Saunders.
You know, I guess this is the agreement or something that we need to come to. By what you were saying, it's almost like we have to decide this building or that building town center. Like we're getting rid of one of the buildings. And I don't think that's really been addressed, and I don't see why we need it. I guess when I think of the community center is more the athletic center, the ice rink, that kind of thing. The town center can be City Hall, the library, if we have some meeting rooms, free Wi-Fi, if we do a coffee thing over here, so people can congregate outdoors and entertain. I mean, in the 2006 plan, they both exist. This is the town center, and the community center remains as the community center, more the athletic, multi-purpose facility. So that, I guess, maybe is where we disagree, because I don't want to get rid of this property, or I think it would be very short-sighted to get rid. I mean, I watched CBS Sunday Morning with Charles Osgood, and it was interesting that the topic was on historic buildings. And I'm not saying I don't know the age of the building, so I don't know whether it qualifies for any landmark, but in that particular episode, they had Grand Central Station on there. And they said, you know, at one point it was going to be multiple lanes of bowling alleys. And then once they had the drawings from a developer, and they were very close to selling it, you know, to have this tall, high-rise building. And they said that the purpose of, you know, keeping architecture, keeping historic buildings is just, it's not necessarily it has to be a certain age. It has to be something that represents that era, that time. And I mean, this building to me really represents Brentwood. And, you know, if there's some way that we can incorporate, because otherwise I feel like we're just going to become one long strip mall. And I don't know if there's any intentions of moving the community center, but it sits so far back on the lot. You know what I mean? This building to me, and I think, Mayor, that you had said it several times, that you wouldn't want to get rid of this building. So, you know, that happened to be on the show Sunday morning, and that's how I feel.
Yeah, and I think, you know, my take on the comprehensive plan, and I think it may be semantics with some people, when we discuss the town center in the comprehensive plan, I think what I took from that when those discussions were going on is we were talking about a sense of place, meaning the center of our community. And what they were really looking at, as much as I think this building is a key component of that, they're really looking at the intersection of Brentwood Boulevard, Eulalie, and Litzinger. In that when people then would drive through our community, they would know this would be our town center. They would know that they're in the city of Brentwood, and you know, that this would be something that we would be able to be proud of from that standpoint as that sense of place. And really out of that, we did take, and we still have the plans for that, to do a major landscaping improvement here, not only on the City Hall parking or City Hall property, but as well as doing on the adjacent caddy corner in front of Walgreens. We did work with St. Louis County. They donated part of that, or gave the city part of that property. I shouldn't say they donated. They abandoned their rights to it, dedicated to the city. And we did have a plan to put either, we never finalize it, but either a water feature or a like a town, you know, old time type clock. Again, we just never decided what the final version would be. We talked about having a brick area around that Brentwood residents could buy a brick and have their name etched in it and put it in part of being part of our community and helping to fund this improvement to develop that area. In improving our Veterans Memorial out in front of City Hall so that was more visible and really was something that stood out as people were coming through the community. We wanted to redo that. But then it came down to funding. And we were talking about, you know, trying to do a couple different mechanisms that we were never really able to put in place in order to do that. The plans are all still there. But really, that was my take on my interpretation of the last comprehensive plan when they talked about a town center. You know, there's very few communities that you can say they have a town center. You know, they have a recreational center like we were just talking about, and they have their city hall, those kinds of things. I am very strongly opposed to trying to sell the rec center, and I know there's misinterpretations on what I've done in the past because I have asked businesses if they were interested because I think we have an obligation to do that, but it would have to be some extraordinary number that they would have to offer us. I will tell you, I think that part of this building could be an historical site. The original City Hall, which is the main front doors here and that part of the building, were actually built as a WPA project back in the 20s. Then we've had 5 different additions over the years since then that have given us this multi-level facility that we have today. So I think there is very much a historical aspect to it. I will say out of the survey, that was the one thing that surprised me, is that more people, or it was only 50-50 people that thought that we should, you know, keep City Hall or that it was a major concern. I think that there's a strong need to keep this building for our community and for future generations. Alderman Saunders.
Well, first of all, that question wasn't clearly asked. That's the one question that I asked Dr. Warren at our last Board of Aldermen meeting. And I have it to put in the minutes because I wanted it reflected just as it was said. And I asked him, maybe I didn't put it in here, but I asked him very clearly what percentage of residents, based on his professional opinion and with the poll advice, what percentage of the residents want to sell City Hall? And he said, I can't answer that question because we didn't ask that. And I had asked, I wanted to put that in the survey, but the other aldermen or some of the other aldermen felt that if you ask the question, do you want to move City Hall to to the other location, or do you want to move the library, that meant they wanted to sell this building. And I don't think you can infer that from that particular question, especially since the result was 50-50. Since then, I've asked, I mean, I come across a lot of people that want to keep the building, but I guess, you know, there could be a younger population that doesn't want to keep the building. But when you're talking about the town center, and I understand the landscaping, and I like that you're talking about, and I recall because I was on the committee, are you still referring to keeping this building, though, in that town center?
Oh, absolutely, right.
Okay,
right, yeah.
okay. Yeah, and that's exactly how I envisioned it. And,
It was
you
one of the
know,
reasons
I mean,
we-
you know, Walgreens is there. It's, you know what I mean? It'd be nice if it was a mom and pop thing, but you know what I mean? It's still, you know, if you do some things, even over there, if they allow us, that make it feel more homey or whatever, town center like, yes, I think that, I agree. That was exactly what the plan was. And then the recreation center was, like you said, just recreation. And perhaps the way we should go is right now in this economy is as much as we can get done. Like if we have the idea that we know we want to keep the ice rink and kind of settle on a set of drawings, if right now the time is to bring up the things we have to, like you said, the doorknobs and stuff, and then let's say maybe in a year or two we can go for the full bond issue. But we do have to do something. I agree with you.
I don't know. I got the impression that it wouldn't be cost effective to go do some of the things and later add the workout room and that type of stuff. I was under the impression it was more cost effective if we did the whole thing at one time.
Yeah, we can't
Oh,
hear what you
okay.
said.
Is this thing on? All right. What I was saying is I was under the impression that to go in and do it in waves is not as cost effective or as efficient as if we would just go redo the whole thing at once. Is that?
That is true.
I mean, and from a financing standpoint, I'm under the impression to go in there and do everything we need to do would run about $7 million to go in there and do this plan with the workout room and everything. Would run you about $9 million. That sound fairly reasonable?
Right. I've got a cost study that we did in the committee based on the GBA study,
So you're talking about a $2 million difference.
roughly.
I mean, if you floated a bond at 4.25%, you can make it a revenue bond or something. You're talking about just spending over a 10-year period, spending an extra $245,000 a year. I did the calculation. That's right.
That's the way I see it.
So, I mean, don't we also pay the Heights money to let our residents? What are we sending
do.
them?
It's 50,000 or 55,000 a year.
65, I
We
think.
Okay.
budget 65, but it's based on actual number of residents that sign up, so it's more like 55,000.
I mean, so out of that 245, we're already sending 55 away. Now you're just trying to find about 190,000.
But again, I think if you read the survey, the residents said, one, they're happy with the agreement with Richmond Heights. Again, I think from a taxpayer standpoint, for us to build a facility, one, that all of our residents would be able to use, these things that we're doing here isn't that facility. I think it would have to be larger. Richmond Heights has already made that investment. I think, as Keith alluded to, they're looking to expand their facility right now. I think they've been waiting to find out what Brentwood is going to do, because if we're going to pull out from their agreement with them, then they probably would not expand their facility. Whereas if we're going to stay there, they're probably going to go ahead and do that. And really, the argument that their facility is overcrowded or busy or whatever, I will tell you that any community, any recreational facility, whether it's private, public, or whatever, they build it for that peak hour, and they expect that people are going to have to wait at that time. If you're building it larger than that, you're just spending money and throwing it away. There are going to be times when it's busy. And, but I can tell you, if you go over to the Heights at lunchtime to use the facility, it's, 80% empty. And so, yeah, at 5 o'clock, most days it's going to be crowded, but they're designed that way. And ours would be no different. To expect that we wouldn't have to wait is really not a true statement, or that would not happen. I think what the survey said, though, was, you know, the residents that wanted us to upgrade the facilities that we have. You know, I don't think we need to build duplicating services either to compete with or have them on our own. You know, we don't have the ongoing costs of those facilities. And I will say this, I think, as a member, Richmond Heights has done a great job at keeping their facilities up to par. They replace their equipment. You know, those treadmills cost anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000, depending on which ones they buy. I think they replace those about every 3 years, if not sooner. You know, so when you look at the ongoing costs as well as the actual construction costs, you know, I think those need to be taken into consideration. So I think what the residents were saying in the survey was, you know, we didn't need to build those facilities. They like having the agreement with Richmond Heights and upgrade the facilities that we have. You know, to the credit of the city and I think our staff, the reason we're at this point is because a lot of this equipment, if you remember from the GBA study, said that, you know, the useful life on like some of the electrical and HVAC systems, you know, was about 25 years. But we've maintained them pretty well and they are functioning, but they are getting to the point where you're not going to be able to do that any longer. You know, the roof, I think it was a 25-year roof, and you know, we're pushing 35 years now. So, you know, these are just the things that we need to do to have a facility like that. Is it going to cost money? Yes. And I think that's why we need to know exactly what we're going to do. We need to look at what needs to be done today and what can be done 2 years from now and put that plan in place. If the original first, you know, $2 million has to be done in the first year, then we're going to have to look at a way to do that. You know, whether that's through a COP, I don't think the residents, you know, want to support a bond issue to do that. I think that was very clear in the survey. You know, and I don't think we could do it by, you know, even if we wanted to build a facility that we were going to charge people to go to, you know, I don't think we generate enough revenue to cover a bond issue through fees. And one other thing I'll say about the ice rink itself, we've actually been hurting ourselves. Not only is Richmond Heights waiting to see what we're doing, but I can tell you that the hockey program, we have lost teams to other ice rinks because they're concerned that the rink is going to close. I've heard that from at least 2 different groups that have gone up to Creve Coeur and signed contracts to rent their ice. They like our ice rink better, but they didn't want to wait till the last minute, and then, you know, there was too much of a rush to go to the other rinks and they wouldn't be able to find a slot.
Question, Your Honor. Currently, do we have open slots for ice hockey teams?
I can't answer that. Can you tell us that?
I'll agree with you that teams shift around, but I'm not aware that we have league time that's not being filled.
It depends on what you're defining as slots open. In the men's league, yes, teams come and go, just like softball leagues, volleyball leagues. As far as actual rental time, come October through the end of February, no. We have maybe 2 to 3 hours a week that we have to give up to rent. We have lost a few renters over the years due to the uncertainty of the rink, like the mayor has stated.
Yeah.
They're just not sure what's going on, so they just decide to leave because they hear rumors and whatnot. And as much as we try to squash them, they hear what they want to hear.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Saunders?
Can I ask, is it possible to get some seed money from like the hockey leagues or the figure skating league? You know, I just happened to talk to someone when I went to my training in Jeff City, and he was from Minnesota and does a lot of these and, you know, looks at the operation cost. And he mentioned that to me. He said that they get commitments ahead of time, you know, knowing that we're going to invest now, and then also, too, then maybe give them preferential time, too, if there's some way. I don't know if it's possible or not, and I could try to look for his name, you know, even if they gave us some draft.
Well, I mean, you may be able to set up a program where, you know, we could ask them to commit to a certain number of years in their contract, but
Okay. Yeah, and I think he did say that
right.
was part of it. Mhm.
Right, and you know, so that we know we have that revenue coming in. And I'm not, Alderman Lee, I'm not trying to say that, you know, we don't have activity at the ice rink. I'm just saying that, you know, that has been a concern with organizations, and you know, it could affect us long term unless we make a decision on how we want to go. I think to to the point that there is demand for the ice rink. And I think, depending on how you want to calculate your numbers, it does cover the cost of the ice rink. The revenue and the fees from the ice rink do that. And we are providing a regional service by having it. There's no doubt about that. But again, as I said, prior to the survey last year and for the year before that and going on, is that we are able, because of our agreement with Richmond Heights and Maplewood, to offer our residents as much or more than any community in St. Louis County, and at a very reasonable price. Again, I think the Heights now is up to $30 a month for a family. I don't know what the individual rate is. When the initial study, if we were to build a facility here in Brentwood, I think the original number that they were talking about was in the 50s for a family, $54 a month for a family membership for a facility like that we were proposing to build here if we wanted to build something to compete with Richmond Heights. That's why I think we need to develop this plan, put it in place, and really work on how we're going to implement it. Alderman Saunders?
Just an add-on, too, as far as using the Heights, with that pedestrian improvement going on through the Hanley Industrial Court, those that are able then, too, it's safer to walk if you choose to walk or jog to the Heights, too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another addition that wasn't there before. Also, didn't the Blues used to practice here in
Yes.
Brentwood? Okay, that's what I thought. So maybe since they're at O.B. Clark's, they do that. Maybe once in a while they could just do a practice if we got new ice.
I will say that they did, and it was more of a status thing than a real benefit to the city.
Okay.
They had restrictions when they were here. For instance, we couldn't sell concessions while they were
Oh, okay.
practicing.
Okay.
Most of the time, if they were winning and they had a bunch of people there, we'd have to have security out there to direct traffic and those kinds of things. So, and they were only paying the same rates as everybody else. And still today, I think, and I'm not a big ice skater. I go every once in a while. I think you'll find from both Hockey League and figure skating will tell you that the ice rink has some of the best ice in St. Louis. They want to be here, and it's a good facility. And that, again, is to the credit of our staff over the years that have maintained it that way. We've been very fortunate that it's in the condition it is today. Sue, do you know actually how old it is?
What, the ice
The facility itself, yeah.
Since 75.
75.
So it's going on 38.
38 years, thank you. So, Alderman Manser?
I just want to say that I'm glad to hear that you're in favor of keeping City Hall. I agree with everything that you're saying. I like the idea of doing it in phases. I like that you're in favor of keeping the ice. I just agree with everything that you say. So I'm glad to hear it. That's all I'm going to say.
That's what I said last year. So, okay.
Can I say a few things?
Sure.
I know the survey says that people are generally satisfied with the parks agreement. That has nothing to do, in my opinion, the way it's phrased and the way it's answered, with whether or not they would support an improved rec center. And I keep going back to the fact that no matter what we say, if we're going to keep this facility open, we have to spend $4 or $5 million. $4 or $5 million. Whatever we do, we have to do that. The ice making system's $1 million. We've got a roof. We've got all kinds of things. It's terribly out of date in a lot of ways. Like you say, ADA, it's completely non-conforming. It has no seismic systems to keep it from tumbling to the ground if we have an earthquake or something like that. So what are we going to do to get that first $4 or $5 million? I mean, it'll cost probably 25 to 30% more in the long run to do it in phases than it would to do it at one time. And it's really not it can be set up that way, but a renovation particularly is going to be super difficult to do that way. So where are we going to come up with that money? I think that's one of the first questions we have to answer. How are we going to do it? It comes down to financing. And another thing is, in the survey, people did support a family rate in the range of $50 a month, which is more than what the Heights is doing. The Heights is giving it away. I mean, it's a bargain. No doubt, it's a screaming bargain, but they're giving it away, And the fact that if they feel the need to expand because they're oversubscribed, then that just says that they are oversubscribed and they are too busy too much of the time. Not every once in a while, like a baseball stadium is very, very busy, sometimes, but the most of the time it's completely empty. they're just too busy, too much, or they wouldn't spend what's probably going to be at least a couple more $1 million on their facility. So can we go back to talking about how much money we're going to have to spend no matter what? You know, fire sprinklers, roofing, ice making systems, seismic systems, ADA, proper entrances, a facade that you can see from Brentwood Boulevard. Most people don't know it's a rec center. They don't have any idea what that building is. And another thing is, you know, I don't think I'm going to walk down, drive down, bike down, whatever, to City Hall if we set up some kind of a patio or whatever and sit around here. If I'm going to the rec center to work out, meet friends there afterwards, you know, if I want to have whatever snack and drink, you know, and sit there and hang out, you know, you've got retired people, you know, playing cards or whatever, you know, that we can provide that. That's almost zero cost in terms of the long-term investment in the building. So I think we should be seriously talking about it as doing part of that city town center function and providing a social outlet for citizens that I think they would actually use. So.
So what are the
Well-
financing options?
Well, again, I think that depends on what we have to do. I think, again, my recommendation is try to take the GBA study, if we can dig up those old plans that showed the improvements to make it a single entrance facility, improvements to the locker rooms, and then incorporate all of these other things that we need to do. And I don't know if it's an engineering company that we need to take it to or an architect that could then look at what all those things are and put them into a plan on, again, what has to be done today, what is going to be the most economical things to do today. You know, I mean, it might not make any sense to renovate the outside of the building. You know, for instance, one of the things with the ice rink, and I'm sure everybody is aware of this, is that we have to upgrade that by 2020, theoretically, because they're going to stop. They're going to stop making the Freon that we use for the system. Although you'll probably be able to get it, but it'll be more expensive. You know, but the point is, we could wait. You know, we may be able to wait and do that in 2019. But it might not make any sense to wait till then to do the ice rink if it's going to disrupt everything you've done on the rest of it. So I'm not an engineer and I'm not an architect to know how to put that plan together. You know, but I think my suggestion would be is that maybe we do an RFP, maybe decide who that is from an architect or an engineering standpoint to put that concept together. Try to bring out that old plan so that we can incorporate that into the outside of the building and move forward. I will agree that a lot of people driving by don't know that that is a rec center, but I will also tell you that you go a lot of places in St. Louis County and they know where the Brentwood ice rink is. Because, again, I think it really is a regional facility that brings a lot of people into our community, gives our residents an option as another recreational activity, and as well as, you know, again, provides it for the entire region. So
I have a question.
I'll entertain for that. But,
My question, I just have a quick question. So can we say that we are agreeing then to keep the ice rink? Is that
that was one question I wanted answered
the
last
one
year.
thing that we can say, yes, going forward, we've made a decision?
Do you want to make a motion to that?
I would love to make a motion. I make a motion that we keep the ice rink.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion, Your Honor.
Absolutely.
I'll ask the whole board to turn to page 23 of the Warren report. In the Warren report on table 3, it identifies the top 10, 11 items that your residents surveyed and said most like, dislike, and put them in percentage categories. They then established ranking order. He ranked them 1 through 11 based on which one got most like answer. Then he combines the two most like and re-ranks them into a percentage order based on those. Your ice skating rink rates 6th out of the list of things that you're citing if you use just most like, and it drops to 11th if you combine them. And you're asking, let's keep the ice skating rink. Your residents in the survey are telling you it doesn't come up with the top 4 things that you want to put into this building, but you want to keep this, and I'm not sure how you're going to make all the funding work if you're going to drop to the 6th item and say we're going to keep it. Are you going to take out 1 through 3 to say 4 and 5, 6 stay in? I think before we decide yay or nay, this board's got to decide what you're doing in the building as to what your residents say they want. Or are we all just voting from our hearts and deciding what's best for us?
Well, I think that is the question, Andy. And I think, again, I think if you look at the other, I'm sorry, but I don't have my survey in front of me. But there was a question whether they thought we should keep the ice rink in the survey. And what was the answer to that?
On page 4 of the survey itself, it points out that supportive or very supportive to modernize was 84%. 76.6% of your residents said they'd be willing to keep the ice, but they're not willing to pay very much to modernize it.
Right. So we pay for it out of revenue, our existing revenue.
But if you're keeping this one, and let's assume on the best rating, it's 6th on your list, what are you putting in this facility in order to make your town center, rec center, whatever, so that you want to tell some architect, give me a design and tell me what my good costs are going to be?
Well, I think
are you going to duplicate the heights? Are you going to?
I'm going from memory here, but I think one of the top items was meeting rooms.
Yes.
So we want to upgrade the existing facility, like the survey says, and bring it up to current standards, what people are looking for. I think, you know, if kind of on a side issue, but one of the things that we could change, I think if we would allow alcohol to be used at that facility, you would, again, you're not going to have huge parties there because we're not going to have a large room there. But for private parties, if you were going to allow people for, you know, receptions or anniversary parties, you're a perfect example. You've gotten approval by
3
the board
different
to do
times.
that. I think you would find that it would even be rented out that much more frequently. You know, so again, and I'm not. I appreciate your interpretation, but I'm interpreting it as if they want us to renovate the existing facility and make those improvements and keep the ice rink. Alderwoman Manser, and then
Well,
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to point out that one of the surveys that was done, originally, everybody wanted an indoor swimming facility. And because the cost was so great and the liability was so great, a decision was made that that was something, even though everybody on the survey wanted it, it ranked very high on the survey, it was something that was decided we were not going to go forward with because of that reason for cost. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yes.
Alderman Sanders.
And again, that's what I feel like survey and polls are informational. They're supposed to help us make our decisions, but then again, and this is where the residents will ask me, are you capable of making the tough decisions? And again, I think that relationship between the Heights bringing the fitness center, Maplewood bringing the outdoor pool, and us bringing the rink makes it, you know, it's a very good relationship. And it might not be all of our residents using it, but at least the ice rink was middle, you know what I mean? It for the very liked, it was middle of the road. But I still think at some point we just have to make the decision as to what goes in there. And like you said, and I do think it'll help the city. I think if alcohol is allowed, and we'll have to look
Again,
into.
I didn't.
Yeah, and I don't want to look into all those issues. You know what I mean? Because I don't want drunk skaters or whatever. But you know, that's something that we'll have to get into more detail. But they do come and they do go to our restaurants, patronize our establishments. So.
Alderman Lee.
Staying with the motion and the second that is on the floor with the ice skating rink and working the parks agreement to work through. I too will agree that the 3 community park agreement is a wonderful arrangement. But this city is paying Richmond Heights to be a participant of that. And that fee is based on helping Richmond Heights recover its operating cost of that facility. If you're going to stay and say that A, B, and C all bring a unique piece to the puzzle, which I've been singing for a number of years, I love it. But the limit is this board voted not to give us that credit, but to pay Richmond Heights for their operating fees so that we could participate. Are you going to go back to Richmond Heights and say, we will keep the ice skating rink, we will modernize it, but we don't pay for the user fee supplement to Richmond Heights because we bring this unique piece to the puzzle?
Well,
And that's a big arrangement because you're looking for money.
right.
And if you're gonna pay them their part of their user fees for running their operating, and you're gonna upgrade your facility, is Richmond Heights and Maplewood people going to be using your facility and paying Brentwood's operating cost? Or is that 100% operating cost absorbed by the citizens of Brentwood?
Well, when Maplewood upgraded their pool, I think about 6 years ago, with a major renovation to that facility, which a lot of our Brentwood residents do use at the residential rates and have complimented the job that they did on that facility, we didn't pay for any of that. If Richmond Heights were to do that, increase their current facility, we wouldn't be participating in that as well. If we subsidized the entire amount for our residents with Richmond Heights that are currently, if we subsidize the difference between the non-residential rate and what the residential rate, we would be paying right now in excess of $100,000
Yes.
for the number of participants that we have in that program. So we are getting a discount in order to be part of that. And I think, again, that facility has a lot more facets to it than our ice rink does. And I think just it's a different type of activity that goes on at that facility than goes on at our ice rink. So I think it's very hard to compare the two when you're looking at it from that standpoint. Again, I don't think you will disagree with me. You've brought this up every year since we've had this agreement with Richmond Heights. I don't think you're particularly in favor of it. But again, I think for our residents and the ability to offer that when people are moving into a community like Brentwood, younger families, they look for those types of facilities. They want to know where they can, take their kids on a Friday evening or a Saturday to go swimming. The question about the pool in the one survey, it did say that the residents wanted a pool, but it didn't ask them if they're aware that we already had agreement with Richmond Heights and if that was okay. They said they want to have a pool. We do want to have a pool, but again, I think that follow-up question would have been key. They could have interpreted that as we don't want to get rid of our agreement with Richmond Heights because we would lose the pool. So, and that's a reason why I don't put a lot of, let me put it this way, surveys can be interpreted in different ways and questions can be asked in different ways. What I've been saying tonight, I've been pushing for a couple years with respect to the ice rink. And I think that comes from the input that I've gotten from residents over the years that they want to, again, upgrade that facility, keep the agreement with Richmond Heights, and offer all of these types of things to all of our residents at all different age levels. So, Alderman Harper.
I'll just add that this is the question that we've avoided, sidestepped for years, so I'm glad that the motion is finally here and we're going to have some type of direction.
It was the one question I wanted to be answered last year. Keep in mind.
Roll call.
So, okay, is there? Well, I will call for the question. This is a motion to that we are going to keep the actual physical ice rink. Roll call.
Alderman Harper?
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes.
Alderman Robertson?
Yes.
Alderman Tui?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
No.
Alderwoman Manister?
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders?
Yes.
I feel like we should go have a party.
Your Honor,
Alderman Leahy.
I'd like to make a motion for the board to entertain that the Board of Aldermen for the Brentwood City maintain Richmond Heights Park Agreement.
You're saying you want to make a motion that we maintain it?
Maintain that agreement, that we do not dump it.
Okay.
Oh, I
Is there a second?
Well,
I
Well,
don't think we should-
I think we
yeah.
should negotiate it each year in case they change the cost. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we're going to have to renew, or do we not renew it? I'm not,
We renew it every year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
you know,
I
look,
think
let's say
you
they
would.
decided though all of a sudden they didn't want us and they doubled the cost. I mean, it would be kind of foolish to commit to something when we have, you know what I mean, when we get to renew it each year.
I think there's an opt-out clause in every agreement,
Right.
90-day notice to terminate. We could
Right.
take a look at that.
But I'm,
The reason I'm making the motion, Your Honor, it goes to the question of what do you put inside this rec center?
oh,
If you
Okay.
already
No,
have
it
this
doesn't.
agreement
No, it
in
doesn't.
place, then you do not have a strong necessity to duplicate the same agreement
agree.
here in Brentwood. And that goes to the total cost of what you look to do in this rec center.
I agree.
And I'm trying to get that narrowed down so that we can then talk to some engineer and say, this is what you put inside the building, what's our cost to make this happen? So that we can at least then start working towards remodeling or upgrading or completely rebuilding. Right now, we're hen picking.
Right. And again, I think, you know, we do technically renegotiate that contract every year anyway. They submit to us what they, you know, when it originally started, and again, just so you have the history of it, when we originally entered into the agreement with Richmond Heights, the first year it was $25,000. They didn't have any idea how many members were going to join. And actually, I think it was a lot more successful than they thought. So instead of just coming back to us the next year and saying going from $25,000 up to $75,000, because what we originally agreed to was that we would reimburse them the difference between the residential and non-residential. Yes, we did, Andy. And
I
so,
made that motion in the committee when they first approached, and I even fought because I wasn't happy with 25,000. And it was just strictly a supplemental fee to help cover their operating cost. They then raised it 5,000.
Well, and what we agreed to was that we would increase it by $5,000 a year to offset some of those costs up to a certain point. I think last year, didn't they commit to keeping it at this level? I thought we were not going to exceed, or
I don't remember.
I thought it was going to stay where it is today for, Sue, do
the-
you remember? No?
The user rate dropped to the point that the formula works out that it ended up being still under what we budgeted to the 55,000 figure is what we've been hitting.
At this point, we currently budget 60,000 a year.
Yes.
The current contract doesn't speak to increase or decrease. It's just based on usage.
Yep.
In fact, we should be doing that. The two,
Actually, it
July.
comes up,
the
right.
two people from each area should be working on that, but it's for 2012, we'll
Yep.
be paying.
Yes, is what we
So,
owe.
but the current contract doesn't speak either way of increasing or decreasing. Just what Bola said, that you have 90 days, and I believe it's actually up this month, so
Right.
Yep.
you have
First
90
of-
days to negotiate the differences. It's either June or July.
1st of July is the due date
I
for the
think you're
billing.
right, yeah. So that-
Well, Alderman Lay made a motion, but there was not a second. That we keep the agreement. Okay, you did? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're talking about keeping the
The
agreement
agreement with Richmond Heights, right.
You know, if I could add something here, what we have right now is a contract with
Right.
Richmond Heights, and I don't think it's a good idea to vote on something to affect an existing contract.
Right. They may raise their rate if they know we're going to keep
Then I
it.
withdraw my second.
Okay, thank you.
Could I
Alderman
say-
Robertson, yeah.
I think it's also useful to, well, speculate, because we don't know for a fact. If we're spending $55,000 or $60,000 a year now, and half the people in that plan decide, well, we're going to do something in Brentwood that'll satisfy me, because I don't want to go to the Richmond Heights facility. You know, and by the way, the running and walking track is the number one thing that people wanted. I don't like the running and walking track at Richmond Heights myself, and that's something that people strongly support, so I think we should look very seriously at putting it into the facility. And it's a very cost-effective thing. But, you know, if we then have half the people opt to stay in the program, that's fine. We don't have to forbid people from going to the Heights. Just support it in what manner relative to the actual use. And put the other funds that people that want to be in our center, put it to us.
Well, the only problem with that philosophy is your whole intent is to pull in your membership with hopefully your user fees to be able to cover your operating cost.
Yeah.
Okay? right now, based on what we have in the demographics for the city of Brentwood through the Census Bureau arrangement and reconfirmed by Dr. Warren, you're looking at 3,200 households. Even at $500 family rate, you're only generating $1.6 million operating, and that's if you had 100% usage throughout the city of Brentwood. Anytime those numbers drop down, we end up lower and lower of generating money for the user. And if you're looking at using general revenue to help cover your capital improvement, you still have to come up the differential of what we wouldn't raise in user fees to cover operating. And now we could build something that we financially, as an 8,000 resident population, can't afford and maintain. And that's where, I'm sorry, I'm very skittish about spending lots of money and putting us into that bind.
We're going to spend lots of money no matter what. People need to understand we're going to spend millions of dollars. The bill is coming due for 38 years. We've had these things getting older and older and older. We can't just, we're not going to spend $1 million. We're not going to spend $2 million. We're going to spend $4 or $5 million. We're not going to do that in phases. And it really can't be done properly that way. If we're going to support the building, we're going to have to cut holes in the walls and ceilings and floors. We're going to have to do all kinds of things that you can't just wait later on. It's an uncoordinated mess. And to talk about that way.
Yeah, I mean, the indoor walking track, I saw that was first and then combined fourth. And, again, I would prefer to put that to expanding the trails like you were talking to. Do you know what I mean? I know it doesn't solve when there's snow and stuff, but the only other thing I can say is I don't know that you can suspend a track above an ice rink, but you know how at the YMCA the track is suspended above the gym. I mean, you'd have to dress warmly when you walk. Be kind of refreshing, actually. But
no,
I mean, Clayton does
can
it.
answer that. We can't. I mean, it may be physically possible, but we wouldn't do that. We would put the track and the gym in the expanded center where the gym would go on there, on front of the building, as GBA designed. And this is what they did. We did a study. We spent good money to have them come up with the recommendations, and we have those.
Okay.
And we're ignoring them.
Well,
We're on the verge of ignoring them. I'm saying.
what I'd like to do is I think this was a good discussion. I'm glad that we actually took a step forward tonight. What I'd like to do is schedule another meeting for 6 o'clock, our next meeting. I would really like to see if we can find that plan that we did back in the 90s for that enclosure of the main entrance, and see if we could bring that forward for people to look at. And then hopefully we can maybe move forward on hiring somebody to help us how to put that together. So,
yeah.
okay. I will ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Take a couple of minutes before we start a regular Board of Alderman meeting. So, and second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, because I didn't want to do it for you know what I mean. But I wanted to ask you. Okay, good.
I'd like to gavel in our regularly scheduled meeting for May 20th, 2013. If you'd all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Alderman Harper.
Here.
Alderman Nguyen.
Here.
Alderman Robertson. Alderman Kramer. Alderman Tui.
Here.
Alderman Leahy.
Here.
Alderwoman Manister.
Here.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Here.
Okay. Let the record show that Alderman Robertson is here. He's just stepped out for a second, please. Next item, approval of the agenda for the regular meeting, May 20th, 2013. Any changes to the agenda? Motion, please.
Motion to approve the agenda as submitted, Your Honor.
Thank
Second.
you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next item, consideration approval of the minutes from the May 6th, 2013 meeting. Any changes? Alderwoman Manister?
Page 6, under bill number 5756, it states that Alderwoman Manister voted no. I'm sorry, it stated that I voted yes, and I actually voted no.
Okay.
Under bill 5756, second page. I'm sorry, page 6.
Okay. Alderwoman Saunders?
Okay, I typed mine, but I guess I have to read them since I didn't. So next time, I'll email them to the board and Octavia so we don't have to go through this. On page 2, third bullet, recreation facilities were ranked last. If you add in very dissatisfied, but when you combine dissatisfied and very dissatisfied, streets and sidewalks ranked last. Then the fourth bullet, after running walking tracks, add when combined ranked fourth. The multipurpose space came in last, but when combined came in first. The ice rink came in 6th and 11th when combined. And then residents are very satisfied with the park co-op agreement. 28.4% very satisfied, 55.6% satisfied, and only 15.9% were dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. And these remarks are Dr. Warren's. I didn't say that. And then the comment, a very, very healthy plurality of people, 48.7%, say to continue to subsidize the park co-op agreement. Only 30.3% say to devote to modernizing, and 21% undecided. And then after bulleted items, add Dr. Warren does not believe a bond issue will pass. And then Alderwoman Saunders asked Dr. Warren if, in your professional opinion, based on the poll, could you tell us what percentage of the population would want to sell City Hall? Dr. Warren stated, no, we didn't ask that. And then, I don't think I put the page number, but first paragraph under introductions, readings, etc. The 11th line, the 57.65%, either now or later, add Alderwoman Saunders asked, how does this benefit the city? Because we are not off the hook for the interest differential. Mark Grimm agreed, we are not off the hook for the interest differential. And then page 5, second line from the bottom, we'll be adding, Alderwoman Saunders asked if these are the only COPs outstanding. I know the library has one. Gina Jarvis clarified that this 2003 COP is for the library and City Hall. Gina stated the 2009 COP is for the firehouse, and we owe $7.5 million on the 2009 COP.
Actually, I think it was the firehouse and police department. We
Well,
combined those.
I didn't want to, because you made that was in, but she just referred to it. You know, they told me it has to be literal when I'm writing, but earlier in it, so however you want to do it, that if you want to add that comment, Mayor, you did say it.
No.
Alderman Lay.
The police department COPs have been fully paid off because we rolled it all into the firehouse and we
Technically,
titled it
right.
just firehouse.
That makes sense, right. You're right. Okay.
So am I adding that?
No, you can leave it.
Oh, okay.
So I move we accept the May 6th minutes as amended.
Well, first, let's have a motion for the amendments.
Oh, maybe I should make my own motion?
Mhm.
I move we accept the amendments to the May 6th minutes.
Second, Your Honor.
And this is just for both changes?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Now motion to accept the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Second, Your Honor.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is bids. Or we don't have any presentations tonight or public
Well,
hearings,
we,
so
we do
bids?
have one on the bids.
No, we have two, actually,
Oh.
but go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Back in February, the city requested sealed bids for the Hanley Industrial Court pedestrian transit project that included sidewalks, ADA ramps, retaining walls, and landscaping. At that time, the low bidder was determined to be Ranieri Construction, Inc. However, since that time, MoDOT contacted the city to indicate that they did not meet the disadvantaged business enterprise requirements, and they had a good faith hearing, administrative hearing, for Ranieri to present their case, and it was determined that they lost that appeal. Therefore, the next low bidder is Gershenson Construction, Inc. at $195,952.86. MoDOT has given us a concurrence to move forward with this project. So we're asking the board to appoint Gershenson.
What was the difference? Do you know? Did you have that number? What was Ranieri's?
28,000,
28? Okay, thank you.
28,600.
And, I'm sorry, did we have to take the second bid because it is compliant with?
Yes,
Okay.
they are in compliance.
Right.
Okay. So we have a motion to accept, or we'll have to have an ordinance drafted
Right,
for that.
it's on the agenda.
Okay, right. So we can, do we have a motion then to accept Gershenson as the contractor for the Hanley pedestrian project? Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Executive walk demolition, do we have that as well?
No, we are still working on that agreement, so we
Okay.
pulled it off.
All right. All right. Before we get into the public comments tonight, I did want to address the board with respect to the state audit, and I've also asked the city administrator to maybe give a short synopsis on some of the things that we've done since 2011 to take care of some of the concerns that really came out in the audit as well. One of the first things I asked the city administrator to do was to develop an RFP for some financial management assistance, assessment, evaluation of our current internal controls. We need to put that out to bid as soon as possible. We are working in a 90-day window with respect to the state auditor's office, and I think, you know, if we can get this going, we could get an accounting firm in here to look at our internal controls, look at our processes, look at our dual controls to make sure that we're doing doing everything appropriately, and where we are deficient, that they can make recommendations on how to make those improvements. I think it would also be important that as we go forward, maybe every, I don't know that you need to do it every year, but maybe every 2 years, you know, look at having somebody come back and look at those internal controls again to see if any adjustments need to be done. The city administrator was able to put an RFP together by contacting some of the other neighboring cities, and my recommendation to the board would be that, again, we have a very short window here in order to start that process. We could have this in the county, we could give them notice Wednesday. It would be in Friday's paper, and then that we have a 2-week turnaround in getting those bids back. We would also send it out to any firms that have expressed interest already at doing that process for us. But I just think it's something that we need to act on very quickly in order to show every effort we can to get this any changes in place before that 90-day window evaporates. Any questions? Alderman Leahy?
In our new employment of our new auditors that we've hired for the yearly activity, isn't this already covered in that contract?
No, they can't do that.
They cannot do
They
that.
cannot do that. They will do the audit. So they will come in, and part of what they'll do is evaluate our internal controls. You have to have segregation of duties. They cannot design and implement and then come in and give an opinion on how well they're designed.
Gotcha.
All I'm saying is our external auditors can come in and test our controls. They cannot come in, though, and design them because they will give an opinion as to their effectiveness. You don't want them auditing their own work. They're not going to tell you, well, these things really suck when they designed them. I mean, that's the risk we run, that they catch their own errors and don't tell us. So it's a major conflict of interest. They don't have independence. You can't have your auditor design your controls. All they can do is point out the holes. It's management's responsibility. You know, the board, our staff, to do this. Now, if we want to outsource it, that's fine. But internal controls are our responsibility, not our auditors.
Thank you for the clarification.
Alderman Saunders?
And I agree with that, and that's what that management letter that I'm always referring to. The internal controls, when they make comments on it, it's a byproduct of their audit. Their audit's a financial audit, and they're saying whether the financial statements are materially correct or materially accurate in most instances, and they issue an opinion to that effect. And so during the course of that audit, naturally, they have to pull samples and they have to ask. And so therefore, they can see whether the controls are working, and they will issue the city, a management letter, and that's where it states, you know, make sure you put controls in for embezzlement and so forth. So that management letter is key.
Okay. Alderman Harper, did you?
I'm not opposed to another audit. This is more of a performance audit like we've had in the past.
What? No,
or
actually,
similar to it.
This isn't even an audit. This would be to come in and look at our procedures of internal controls and how to strengthen them and make them better.
What I would like to see happen is what some residents have spoken to me about is doing a forensic audit to where there's not a time frame on how far back they go. And I think that would do a lot for once and for all, moving past this situation that we've been in the last several years. That would be, it just in my opinion, the defining piece, whether or not there's more to be concerned about or if everything's fine. So that's the avenue that I would like to see us go down.
You're comparing the apples to oranges. I mean, this is to put controls to go forward.
Oh, no, and I said I'm not opposed to this, but I said, but what I would also like to see is a forensic audit as well.
Yeah. I just think that's a totally different discussion.
And again, that's not going to help us get to the state auditor's issues that they brought up. And that is another discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it's a discussion worth having. I'm just saying for this topic, it just doesn't really fit.
Alderman Saunders?
I disagree because you can do the two in conjunction. I spoke with Ron Steinkamp, and I know Bola had tried to meet with him a couple times, he said, and Showalter and Jabori reached out to Ron Steinkamp. He's with Brown, Smith, and Wallace, and they did the fraud seminar, conducted that for the Municipal League, which Anthony and Cindy and I attended along with Bola. And I'm not sure what other, I think Gina was there too. But they can do both at the same time. That's the beauty of it. I mean, naturally, we do not want any duplication work. They'll look at the police work, and they're not going to go through that again. Do you know what I mean? That's already done. They're not going to go through the state audit. But there's definitely areas that need to be looked at. If you can only account for $265,000 of a firehouse construction project, there's a big problem there. And no inventory, that's a huge problem.
I'm going to jump.
And so,
All right. I'm sorry.
so I spoke with them. I spoke with a couple different auditors that have firms that do both of these things, and they can do it simultaneously.
I want to correct that statement, and I think, again, from the state auditor standpoint, if you listen to what he said was, when they first asked for the bids for the fire department, they could only originally account for the 280,000, or wasn't it? It was 240,000, I think, actually. But the amount that was, or the bid work that was done for the construction manager process. We documented that from our minutes and so forth in the procedure. What we didn't have here physically at City Hall were the documents for all the subcontractors that were bid out. It was brought to my attention in February of this year that staff could not locate those documents. Again, to give you a time frame, the fire department wasn't completed until early 2011 when a lot of this happened. It was part of the construction manager's job to help with that bid process and keep all of those records. When it was brought to my attention that we couldn't locate those files here, I suggested that they contact the contractor, that they should have all those documents in place, which they did, brought them to the city, and the state auditor's office has them, or saw them. What they said was we weren't able to produce them when they asked them. That project was put out to bid. Everything was done appropriately, and so, again, it was, people were not hearing exactly what the state auditor was saying when he made that statement. I think that is a key point and a clarification needs to be made. That project was put out to bid. Every aspect of it was put out to bid, and we have the documentation to show it. Alderman Saunders.
Yes. Now, I was in the meeting too. First of all, let me tell you, the state auditor's office is an elected office, so there's politics always in everything. Second, we could not produce the other bids. Now, that's what was said. We could not produce the other bids, and we went to Don Muzak to get the actual contract. Well, I have trouble, first of all, that he got the contract while he's suing us. But there are definitely areas here that need to be looked at, that should be looked at by a forensic auditor. And the one thing is if we, if the board agreed, and this is no kind of witch hunt, this is just to make sure that we've unearthed what needs to be done, and if there was other individuals that were involved, they need to no longer be here. But at the same time, these auditors specialize in writing controls. That seminar was not about how just to detect, go back and look at fraud. He was giving us the solutions to prevent fraud. Mm-hmm. They specialize in both, so it's a win-win. And, the former board that was up here and whoever was up here agreed that they were asleep at the wheel, or they missed some things in 2011. Well, if you missed them then And that report came out with the lowest rating and more incidences. Tom Schweik said 21, the most he's ever cited, I believe, or something to that nature. I don't want to be quoted exactly. Then why isn't it not a logical conclusion that a lot more happened prior to that point? And again, you know, I'm not talking about trailing $34 or something like that. Just they have an aptitude to look for the big picture items, you know. And with talking to Ron, he said no inventory, that is absolutely huge. And I think we can see that with the St. Clair Fire District. And I just don't see what the resistance is to it. But the other thing, too, that it did aggravate me with Tom Schweik was he minimized the main part of doing that audit, because we knew we'd already uncovered the embezzlement, and it was a performance audit. But the main thing is the sentence in there. They're supposed to evaluate your risk for fraud. And their conclusion in there, although it's buried in a sentence in a paragraph, is, yes, you had the possibility for additional fraud. And there's no doubt about it. I mean, nobody's keeping timesheets, receipts, records, or anything. I don't understand. It's just a logical foregone conclusion that more happened. 98% of my body will say that we will find additional things that need to be taken care of if we go and look back. And at the same time, as we're detecting these weaknesses, we implement new controls. The state, I asked Ron to go ahead and he's prepared a spreadsheet for me, breaking down the state audit process. And you're not going to duplicate the state's work, and you're not going to duplicate our police work. But there were other areas that were not looked at. And there were some, things that possibly later, the IT manager and accounts receivable could impart information on other areas that, were open for misappropriation, or, I hate to use the word fraud, but, wrongdoing or something to that nature. But I think it's imperative, in order to regain the trust, that we do this, but we do it simultaneously. Hire a firm that specializes in both. And in doing this too, though, I do think that if we decide to take this route, the selection committee should be the 3 aldermen that were not on the board when the wrongdoing happened. And I just say that not just for myself, but I mean, you're supposed to give the greatest, even appearance of impropriety, you're supposed to steer away from. So it's not saying anyone did anything wrong. It's just that's best practices. And if it's an oversight committee that we decide, but again, we have to be careful about the appointments. But I just can't understand why we can't do both simultaneously.
Okay, I want to weigh in. So, 2 points of clarification there. One, you made the comment about the state auditor being an elected position, so it's politics. Are you saying that we're not going to get the full, or we can't trust his opinion? I'm just looking for clarification on this one.
No, it's just simply a statement. And for me, it was difficult to hear him say we got a poor writing and more sightings, but everything will be fine in 90 days. Okay. I mean, it was difficult for me to listen to that, but if that's his interpretation of the audit, so be it.
Okay, all right. Shoot, I had a second point. I can't remember. Well, I'm going to jump in here. I think from my perspective, I know the things I've said, I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying, and I think a lot of people are. And this does frustrate me. What I want to see is something well planned out. That doesn't mean no, but it's saying I want to see an intelligent plan by, really formulated with ideas. And I'm going to jump back to the Ways and Means Committee meeting. You said at one point, and this is totally a misleading statement you made against me at Ways and Means. You said I called you, and I said a state audit's inappropriate. There's actually more I'm going to add to this. That I told you a state audit was inappropriate, and that I threw out there that I was a financial guru, and that it was totally inappropriate. Not true. What I called you and I stated is that why aren't we using a local or a CPA firm instead of the state? And you didn't really. You told me the reason was independence. That's what you said in the Ways and Means Committee meeting, that the reason was independence. Now you're kind of questioning the independence of the state. The other issue I'm having here is that, I think the first audit, the reason they're calling for another audit is because it wasn't well planned out. If you wanted a forensic audit, we should have gone for a forensic audit.
I was an elected official. 5 votes. 5 votes. The only tool available to a resident, a non-elected official, is the state audit.
But I wasn't done. I'm sorry. You just didn't want to seem to hear anyone else's opinion. And also at the last Ways and Means Committee meeting, I'm sorry if you don't want to hear the truth. I mean,
Keep going.
so at the Ways and Means Committee meeting, I had also proposed, let's get in front of this and let's start putting the controls in place. We didn't discuss the audit. There's a lot of work that goes into internal controls. And now everyone's talking about a tight window. We could have avoided this tight window. And instead of debating me in merit, what you did is you slandered my character. You made this allegation that I called you from John Lamping's home and said that a state audit was inappropriate. And then you said that the mayor and I met at John Lamping's home. I never met Pat Kelly until I was elected. I've never been to John Lamping's home. I asked you to correct that. You refused to. And then at the next meeting, you even denied that you said you called me at John Lamping's home. The goalposts just constantly move with you. I'm not against looking back, but I just can't stand the goalposts moving and the answer always changing. At first, you tell me the state auditor is going to give us the best opinion. Now, all of a sudden, well, he's kind of shaky because you didn't give you the results you wanted. I'm sorry, he is a CPA. He's got experience. And some of the things you say from a technical standpoint really concern me because you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, you make so many
Okay.
claims about, I'm still going.
Okay.
You know, you talk about these audits are going to give us the internal controls. The state was going to give us internal controls. They weren't. And I tried stating that from the beginning. Internal controls are our responsibility. And you throw slander when you're losing in merit, and then you just want us to move forward. You have this mentality of ready, fire, aim. I'm saying let's aim. I'm not saying let's not look back, but let's have a plan. These things are not cheap. I yield the floor.
Alderman Saunders.
Okay. Respectfully, at that Ways and Means meeting, what first happened was Patrick Toohey had given that interview or the letter to the patch regarding the internal controls and that right after we had met in closed session with the state auditor's office. And the state auditor's office said that was inappropriate. And I brought that up at that Ways and Means meeting. And it was like, well, who cares? And then I said, well, don't we want to at least ask Frank or get a legal opinion? And Tom Kramer looked at me and he said, I'm the chairman, I'm in charge, we're going with it. And I am treated differently than other individuals on this board. You can go back and look at the history of name calling, yelling at me. We're missing some tapes that will verify this. Alderman Leahy has accused me of blackmail, which I've consulted with attorneys, and I asked Frank to have that retracted, but he said that's not his business or whatever. So I reach a breaking point too at a certain point in time. You ran for office, then you got out of running, and then somebody ran, then you got back in. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but you didn't understand. Obviously, if you asked me why I didn't go for a forensic audit first, our conversation didn't help. And I didn't say pure independence. I said independence of setting the scope. And I didn't say that Tom Schweik's work was no good. I said I differ with his interpretation of the work. I did ask you because you did call me. I remember the phone call. I was sitting at Camille's with my husband, and I will go back and get verbatim from both those meetings, the tapes. I told you I would be happy to do that. Okay, we'll put it in. I'm fine with that. I know that I said some things that, I reached my breaking point, but I will still stand by the fact that I asked you, you called me and you said, I really think we should have a regional auditor. And I said, well, why would we do that? We've lost trust in our government. We went on, and it was independence of scope. And you introduced yourself. I didn't know you from Adam. And you told me you work for Wells Fargo. You're in John Lamping's office. That didn't say anything. That doesn't mean a darn thing to me. I mean, you told me that. And then later, when all of this Gary Bierman, they find dirt on him who's running against you, the mayor, and I guarantee you, the mayor is the one that told me that he met you at John Lamping's home. Well, you did, Mayor Kelly. You came to me, I'm standing right out in that corridor, and you said, gosh, can you believe that about Gary Bierman? It was the same day that Jim Bischoff filed to run against me. And I said, boy, it's interesting that you already know about that. You know, it's Ward 4. And I asked you, so do you know Patrick Toohey? And you said, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. I said, oh, come on, Pat. You know Patrick Toohey. And you said, oh, yeah, come to think about it, I met him at John Lamping's home. Now, this is what happens. I said it, so it's a liar. Julie Pozzo and maybe Jim were standing there. But this is what I said at the Ways and Means meeting. They know me, so they're liars. They're naysayers. Anybody that knows me is wrong or is a liar. And I'm getting a little bit tired of it. That did happen. As I told you, there were other conversations that you called me, you know, going on about the police or whatever. We had a couple conversations, but I did not lie. I did apologize to you. I told you it was inappropriate, that I brought it up because I just had reached my point in the fact that I didn't even get a courtesy of wanting to check whether or not that was legally correct for him to go on that particular issue. And I guarantee you, if I brought it up here, it would have been referred. And that's the kind of treatment that I get regularly. And every once in a while, I don't behave in the best of manners.
Well, I want to correct that because I did not meet Patrick until after he was elected, I believe it was. And I don't know what I said when you say I said it, but why would I say something about Patrick Toohey that I had never even met the guy before?
Because I asked you if you knew Patrick Toohey, and you said no, and I said, oh, come on, you know Pat, because I felt like maybe...
Well, why would you say that if I said no?
Because usually there's a candidate that's put up against other candidates in different wards. For instance,
Again,
Jim Bischoff put up against me.
that I was
No,
putting somebody up
you
that
put Jim Bischoff up against me. I'm getting calls from John Gephardt telling me about Tremelli products. Oh, Pat, there's a lot that goes on. And, you know, you can just push me to the side and pretend that it doesn't happen. But, man, there is a good old boys network up here. You know, Barb and them did fine. It's the first time, you know, and I definitely know that I could probably have a suit against this city as far as discrimination. Because as long as you agree with you, it's okay. But as soon as you ask questions and don't agree, I don't know. I can't understand the treatment that is displayed.
So use the same tactics.
Yeah, let's get back to the issue of hiring some firm to come in, you know, because. Well, I just...
Well, so as a CPA, Alderman Toohey, and studying for your CFA and all of your other experience, why would it not be a good idea to do both of these in conjunction, a forensic and an internal controls audit?
The 90-day window.
The 90-day window, we've known about these things. You know, have you been involved in an audit? Have you been involved in an audit? Well, you tell me all the time that I don't know what I'm talking about.
14,000 hours worth of audit experience.
Okay,
Is that
great.
enough?
So do you think that the person that's being audited doesn't know they're doing anything wrong until the actual report's issued?
Can you say the question again?
Okay, do you think that the entity that's being audited, that they are totally blind at the time the report is issued? That they have no idea of what's going to be on that report?
Oh, they would know.
Right, because they've been asked for things and they can't produce them, correct?
Correct.
And so wouldn't it have been prudent to begin entering the controls then?
Well, you probably would have told them they gave away executive session or something. I mean, that was my thought process. We knew that internal controls were bad. We could start this process. Then you went out there, you know, saying that I was violating. You were mad because you weren't the star on this situation.
All right, let's stick to the...
That's fine, and I don't mind. But what I'm saying is you waited until after the report was issued. There was still this hope maybe that it wouldn't be as bad as it was. I'm asking you as an auditor, do you know during the course of an audit when you've done something wrong or is not up to snuff?
You should know the exceptions. Yes.
And would you wait until that report came out to start putting in the controls, or would you do it as you found out?
Well, I wait. All depends. Each situation is subjective. I can't answer that with just a broad statement. It depends on what it would take and if there are other areas that could still be changed because of
Before I even got on the board, the time clocks were discussed at Ways and Means. I attended the meeting, and Chief Jury had said, you know, there's shifts, they can't really do it. Mike Marshall was chair, and he said, I work for a hospital, and we have a lot of shifts. That was in the works before I even got on the board, and that got tabled. Now it's in the forefront again, because I have not heard any discussion about that in Ways and Means since I've been on the board, and I was at the meeting when that happened. I mean, maybe recently we've said we're going to go back to time clocks, but you were arguing that even at Ways and Means before I got on, Alderman Leahy, you argued that even we should have to punch in and punch out.
Are we talking time clocks or audits?
Well, no, these were things, what I'm saying is these were things that
Maureen,
came out on.
Yield to a question.
Wait 1 second, though. These were all items that came out on the state audit report. So we could have already been implementing controls. We've already had the gas policy come before us, the fuel man policy come before us. We've had multiple things come before us.
The last Ways and Means meeting, when Alderman Toohey raised the issue of internal controls, you cited that the committee at that time was going outside the state audit and excused yourself for 5 minutes while the board continued discussing it, then returned to the meeting to explain that we weren't doing it right and that we should do the internal controls. So he's trying to get an agreement with you, and you're fighting him on that issue. And I'm not following your logic.
Ditto.
I'm not, okay. Okay.
come on.
Ditto. The thing is, again, Alderman Toohey waited until after he had read the report in closed session of the state auditors. And yes.
That's an
he did.
assumption, because the board agreed that we would give Bola time to go through and understand what was in front of her and get through with the state auditors before she started making suggestions to this board on things that she wanted to change, and that she didn't want to make changes in the middle of them doing the audit. Do you recall that conversation? And
No,
we all
maybe-
agreed that that sounded like a very logical way to proceed, instead of having the guy trying to audit two different ways of doing something, changing midstream.
Okay, if you would present, unless that was when I'm out the 5 minutes, if you would present
That
that
was-
to me. Okay, if you would present that to me, find the minutes,
Yeah.
find the meeting, and make sure that I'm on the board then. Because
Yes.
these conversations start before April 2012. Alls I'm saying is, and Alderman Toohey decided that we're going to sidetrack it. Alls I want to know is, why can't we do both? The state auditors do not expect you in 90 days to have everything perfect. They expect a good faith effort.
Okay.
Well, we've already done the fuel man policy and the gas. We've been researching the timesheet since before I was on the board. We already have the documents on the firehouse. We've already put in a policy for mileage reimbursement, and when we went to Jeff City, we had the new policy reimbursing us for that. So, it's just that necessarily, maybe we don't, maybe the internal control review, we can do it, but Bola's been bringing things up as she's seen that they're missing, and that's how an accounting, and that's what I took exception with Patrick, is like, we don't necessarily have to get someone out, that's what an accounting department does. Are you saying we have no controls? Are you saying that they can't do the work? That was where you and I were having some disagreement, and then we discussed further. But again, the question I would like answered is, why would you be supportive of a forensic audit?
Again, I don't know how many times I have to answer this. I'll go ahead and answer it again, and then if you want to just try and discredit the opinion, that's your choice again. But I'm not against a forensic audit. I'm willing to
Okay.
listen, but it has to be planned out. I just don't want to fire out a decision right now without a plan. And we have 90 days. I want to get the control part taken care of. We can revisit the forensic audit. It's just any time someone decides they're not going to do it quite your way, you just fly off the handle, and
All
these
right,
meetings turn into a
Alderman
circus.
Harper, did you?
First, thanks for not appointing me to Ways and Means. I guess my perspective on it is, obviously, I was on the board when some of the stuff with Chris happened. Feel horrible about it. The upswing of a forensic audit is they could show that nothing else happened, and then we can put aside all this other stuff that goes on this board.
Yep.
The downside is, I don't know what the downside would be. If somebody else did something, we'd find that. And And just from my line of work, doing investigations, I'll try to make a comparison since I'm not an auditor. But when we suspect someone may have done something illegal, we offer a polygraph, which would be similar to a forensic audit. If someone denies to take it, then we got concerns. So my concern would be why we wouldn't pursue a forensic audit. If we don't think anything happened, and we do it and we can show the residents, hey, everything is in good standing now, that's the best upswing we could have right now. I mean, that's what we need to get rid of all the bad tension that goes on the board, because it all stems from the bad issues that we had when Chris did what he did. I mean, so I would like to move forward and have a more harmonious board, not that we agree on everything, because I don't want us to be rubber stamping everything, but a little more harmonious where we can say, yeah, you know what? Professionals came in, they looked, they didn't find anything else, let's move on. Right now, we can't say that.
Well, I would actually tend to disagree with that.
Okay.
Well, that we can't say that. You know, we had some of the same arguments that we're hearing tonight about doing a forensic audit were the same things we heard when, you know, for the reason for doing the state audit. The state auditor has stated that there is no fraud, there wasn't any theft. If they had had any indication, they would have gone back further.
In 2011.
What? Excuse me. And then the other key component is the fact that we did have a federal investigation. They did go back to 2008. We have been told that they went through every check that the city issued back to 2008 and didn't find any additional fraud. And, you know, so what's the scope and what's the benefit of going back further or, you know, trying to find a $30 check or something like that that's going to cost us another $70,000? And, you know, so that's the reason I'm opposed to a forensic audit. You know, I tell you what, I would appreciate at least a little bit of courtesy. I have a right to my opinion. I've served up here for, you know, 20 years. I guess I'm part of the good old boy network that has helped to build what I think is one of the best communities in St. Louis County. We have, no matter what anybody wants to say, a very stable financial community. We offer and have maintained some of the best services in St. Louis County. I think the outcome of the park survey was a good example of that, how pleased our residents are with the services that we provide. You know, it's very easy to sit on the outside and call somebody part of the good old boys network, but I would tell you right now, anybody that's sitting up at the board is part of the good old boys network because we have to work together to get things done. I think what happens is a lot of what other people are doing is doing things behind the scenes instead of doing them here. You know, I don't have private meetings. You know, I talk to the public here. I guarantee any one of you out there has never asked me a question that I haven't answered. And I've tried to do that from the day I was elected. And I've done the best job I can for this community as well as the other officials up here. And I think to just keep trying to go back and, you know, see, you know, spend another $90,000 on a forensic audit, whether it turns up a $30 charge or something. I'm going by the professional people that have done these investigations already, and they told us that there wasn't anything else there. And so, you know, you can hold that against me if you want, and, you know, but and what I'm hearing from people in the community is that they want us to move forward, not backwards. And I think that's what we need to do. Alderman Lady.
Thank you, Ron. In the request to go to a forensic audit, may I ask for some clarification on the state audit? Maureen, I'll direct my questions to you because you're the petitioner for the state audit. It is my understanding that the petitioner submitted a 26-page request to the state auditor identifying items that they thought should be looked into. As a signature on one of the petitions to support the state audit, have those 26 pages been made available? And did the state auditor look at those things that you cited, or were there things on the list that he said, we're not going to go there, we're not going to look at it? I don't know the answer to the question.
The state auditor said no, they would not look at the audit. They accepted it from us, but when Chris Vetter called me to talk to me about the results being out, he said, Maureen, we couldn't look at those items, and this is what I was told, and we also, when we go to meet in closed session, I don't want you to ask about those items. That's his words.
Okay, so
He said, I want this meeting to be about the results of the report. I don't want you to go back and hash up other things that,
All right.
and that report was just from writing the petition. Everybody had something, a story or something. I mean, I haven't
right.
even lived here long enough to have had all the stuff that was written in that report.
since I haven't seen them, let me ask a couple further questions if I may.
Mhm.
I'm picturing 26 pages. Are there one action on each of the 26 pages with a justification as to what you wanted to be looked into? Or were there 26 pages with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 listing on all 26 pages
No.
to fill in the report?
The first.
The first. So we have
Agreed.
26 different items and justification to look at. And the state auditors chose that some of those were just not available to be reviewed.
If it was in 2011, they would look at it. And then they will go back. If they find it in 2011, they will go back.
Okay.
There's another, there was another issue that, when we were in closed session, I had asked, once we get out of, that's why another thing for minutes of closed session, but when we were in there, I asked Chris Vetter, Frank, that when we were discussing the report and what our responses were, he said, now you cannot talk about this until it's public. But then I asked the question, but once it's public, can we talk about what we discussed in this meeting? And he said, yes, there's no reason why you can't.
I don't see any reason why you can't.
Okay, so for instance, when the bids were not, when the city couldn't produce the bids for the firehouse, I asked Chris, did you call any of those construction companies and ask them if they submitted a bid? And Chris Vetter said no. Well, in speaking with the forensic auditor, he said there's a yellow book that they follow for state audits, and they are supposed to look within that year for fraud. And since those bids weren't produced, one of the requirements would have been to call some of those vendors, and they didn't do it. And he said that's really wrong. So people do make mistakes. There are mistakes made, but there was an awful lot on that report. And again, not saying it's intentional or anything. It's just that the controls just didn't exist. And there was a lot of money flowing through City Hall. And I think we just need to shore up, that nothing more happened and restore the trust of the residents. And at the same time, I think we can do that. Again, I do not want to duplicate the police work. I do not want to duplicate the state's work. And also, you say they looked at every check. When you do auditing, Patrick, I'm going to defer to you, do you just look at checks as far as?
Again, you got to know the scope, but a general financial audit, no.
No, but I
You're
mean, if you were
talking-
doing a forensic audit, would you just look at checks? I mean,
What
I'm not talking
areas-
about, they were given a scope, don't get me wrong, I'm
Right.
not talking about our police. But what I'm saying is, that's what we've said, the type of audit that's been done back to, I thought it was 2009, now 2008, that they looked at the checks and the credit cards. Are there other areas in the accounting department where fraud could take place?
Sure, there are false vendors is usually one of the big ones. That's actually a huge one that you would look at. Now, I don't know what our procedures are to check on that, but so you basically submit an invoice
Well,
for
and then we-
services that didn't take place for a dummy company you set up. Yeah, I think the inventory has already been covered. Like you talked about an inventory count.
Right, do you think, is there potential there?
Sure, anytime. I mean, I don't know enough about what our items are. I mean, no one's going to throw a dump truck under their arm and walk out with it, but
But what about
I
that
think IT equipment.
1 to 10,000 range, laptops walking out the door, iPads?
Oh,
but
sure,
what
that's what I'm
about it,
saying,
you know,
IT
But I'm
equipment.
talking more about not walking out the door as much as being coded to something and not actually being there.
False vendor payments off the top of my head, or where I would look.
Well, I mean, I'm talking if you're talking to a vendor, but what if you're making personal purchases and coding it too? the fire station or whatever department, the police station, I don't want to solo them out, or the administration department. That's what happened with St. Clair Fire District.
I'm not sure I quite follow. So,
Well, if
if
you
they
make
look,
purchases for yourself,
right.
but you actually code it to the fire department, do you know what I mean? Like it's something that maybe they sell something that, you know, you
Right,
could
right.
use too,
Buy
but the item isn't actually there.
13 laptops when you only need 12 and take
Right,
one. Is that
right.
okay? All right.
Yes.
Sure. That's something I'll look at. Now, again, when they say looked at every check, I don't know what that entails.
Yeah, I don't want to go back and look 34, but there's some areas that
Sure,
really.
but I guess
were
probably not. Though,
very
when you look at the checks, usually what you look at are there's the matching process. So you take the check back to the invoice, back to the purchase order. So if the dollar amount on the check matches the dollar amount on the invoice, and then the dollar amount on the invoice matches the purchase order, and there was some sort of sign, someone approved it, somehow they, receiving slip or something verifying they actually received the documents, and then, that's pretty good control right there. You then probably want to take that to the budget somehow, the purchase order to the budget, make sure all that was approved. But generally, purchase orders are approved. That typically is the match. It would be very difficult, I think, to go from that to match that up to all of our inventory. I mean, you could do some spot checks. Problem is, there's so much vague territory as far as where's this laptop now if it was ordered. I'm not saying it can't be done. It's just difficult.
that's a huge area, and that's exactly the St. Clair Fire District. I mean, it's happening
But you
currently.
ideally
So
on.
I'm just saying that, like you're saying, the receiving, and we know they didn't back in 2011 have those controls because you asked about it in Ways and Means. So the potential to have lost a lot of money is there.
Well, and again, I think not maybe understanding how our money comes in and those kinds of things may clarify some of the concerns. But, when you're comparing us to the operation here to St. Clair Volunteer Fire District, I think if you actually go back and look, the problem they had there was one person was in charge of the finance and the checkbook. I think it's been already documented. Not only was the chief that is now going to potentially be serving time, but so was his wife. She was literally signing checks and paying for personal items with the district. I don't think that's anything compared to, and again, I'm not saying we don't need improvements, but the controls that we had here with respect to our deposits and those things when they came in. So I don't think it's a fair comparison when you're talking about a one-man operation compared to what was going on here at the city of Brentwood.
I'm not talking about the operation.
But you keep making comparisons
No,
to
I'm
us to
talking
the-
about, though, how he purchased something personal. I was just trying to use the example. But from what you're saying, though, you say that there's no comparison because that's kind of a one-man shop or a rinky-dink mom and pop. Here we are, a sophisticated city. We enter in the most sophisticated transactions, interest rate swaps. We pay the top attorneys, $500,000 going out on Meridian litigation, and we pay $20,000 or $16 to $20 a year for our accounting firm. They give us advice as to what to do. We don't do it. We throw it out the window. I mean, we should be more sophisticated. Yes, they should get the poor rating, not us. I mean, that's the thing is that it just doesn't make sense. I mean, our accounting department was just almost non-existent, whereas here we've got, like I say, we hire Thompson Coburn. We're astute enough to know that the insurance attorney isn't good enough, so we hire Thompson Coburn, and we have Mark Grimm for bond counsel and interest rate swaps. I mean, it just doesn't seem to add up. So, I mean, of course, they were a mom and pop, but we got the poor rating. So are we on the same par as them? I don't know. I mean, I just don't get it.
Alderman Harper.
I'll be quick. I just wanted to clarify. When I made my statement, I wasn't implying that you or any other board member that was on the board had done any wrongdoing. I hope you didn't take it that way.
No, I was more. Never mind. I'll keep it.
Because I am part of the good old board.
I'm going to open up the public comment and let some of the residents talk, and we will proceed. So, if anybody would like to address the board, please come forward and give us your name and address.
My name is Karen Meyer. I live at 8726 Pine Avenue. and I've been a resident, ballpark at 43 years. I have several comments I want to make, and I'll make them very briefly. First of all, I don't come to these board meetings because you cannot hear what is being said by the board members. I hear the mayor. I don't see, or I don't hear most of these other people. This is an open meeting. If we can't hear, how can we judge? So, and I said to the man who runs the equipment, I said, you know, we show up and we can't hear. He said, well, that's so the people that watch the television can hear. Well, we show up and we can't hear what you people are saying, and I have a tendency to not care for that at all. We should be able to hear what you are saying. It's our town. Next comment.
Ma'am, we can't hear you unless you...
Oh, no, you didn't.
Go ahead, Karen.
You know,
Karen, I'm sorry.
I
That's-
took a
New
public
mics.
speaking course in high school, and the very first thing the high school teacher said to me is that you need to address the last person in the room, not the person sitting in front of you. There's no reason why we should not be able to hear you. State audit, I've read it. Without good policies and procedures, you don't have accountability and records. The state audit is appalling, and every one of us here should be embarrassed by it. My goodness, a local community paper touted Rock Hill for being awarded certificate for having their house in order. It's about time we get our house in order, and we can't do it without having a forensic audit and finding out why all of this is happening. Any executive administrator working in a small community office keeps better records than this community. I've read the report. It's appalling. And I take myself to task for not being involved sooner. I trusted you people and our city officials to know what you are doing, and you're not doing it. I want the forensic audit. I want written descriptions of written job descriptions of the people who are supposed to be accountable for different things. If you don't have good job descriptions and you don't know what an individual or a group of individuals are supposed to be taken care of, how can you go back and say, have you taken care of it? You don't know who's doing what. That's appalling. Any person that has bought and taken care of a house has better records than this city does. And another thing I would like to say is that this is not the venue for this continued turf war between you aldermanic board members. It is just despicable. You've wasted a whole hour talking about things that should be discussed and should have been resolved. You don't have it together, and I'm tired of it.
My name is Len Eschbach, 2210 Hatton Lane, Brentwood, Missouri. I know most of you guys, we've worked on things before, school board, TIF commissions, comprehensive plans, etc. I came here tonight at the urging of citizens because of my professional background and maybe being able to shed some light on what we can do to move forward. It was interesting. The last hour, I probably learned more than I did with my analysis of the state auditor's report, reading into what I could about the embezzlement investigation by our police and the U.S. Attorney General, and discussing the situation we have here with our attorneys and our forensic audit group of our firm. I had comments to make and for some things to you consider, but I'm going to change my comments to close my book because I think I have a recommendation or maybe a solution to put an end to this. Number one, we do need to fix the internal controls. State audit indicates that half those items are policy, half of them are the accounting controls. The accounting controls are really going to be the easy fix. We're not that big. It can get done. We should have good computer systems. The other ones will take longer, the policy ones. Some of the stuff in there I thought was almost trivial. We know it. He might not, because we're a small community and we should be able to get along and work together. So what I'm going to recommend is this. We hire a good firm that specializes in audits of local municipalities to get working with our city to document and improve our controls. Not just segregation of duties controls, but a process that has detective and monitoring and top-end monitoring controls so that we have a process going forward where there's oversight from the top for what our hired folks in the administration do. At the same time we do that, that firm hopefully would have a forensic division, but be careful of the word specialist. I'm a CPA. I guess I should back up for a minute and say why I come here and say this. 35 years in an auditor. I've audited public companies, private companies, SEC filings. I oversee quality of audits in our St. Louis and Decatur, Illinois offices. And our Decatur office, we do work for the Attorney General of the state of Illinois, where besides financial statement audits, it's internal control audits, and it's compliance with laws and regulation. So I should know what I'm talking about. I also should say these are my opinions, not those of my firm, because if they were the firm, they'd have to get vetted, etc. So please take it from me, not our firm. Going back to the word specialist, accountants are bad. You know, we advertise almost like the lawyers. What you need to do is really vet the firm you're hiring. That firm needs to be very good at working with municipalities, and if they have a forensics accounting firm, you should be able to hire them as consultants to determine if you need a forensic audit. I'd like to ask all of you to write down what a forensic audit would detail. We're going to get different answers. There's been a lot of work done. If our police department and the U.S. Attorney reviewed checks from 2008 through 2011, that's a thorough review. The U.S. Attorney's Office does not just sign off on things. The state auditor, I think they did do a good job with their audit. I think the reason a state audit is weak, and one of the things Patrick was talking about, and Maureen, you know I wouldn't sign your petition. I wanted to hire a firm that would have done this internal control review and looked at that process at the same time. The state audit, by what they're allowed to do, it's almost what I call a got-you list. Everything that's bad goes down on the list, and they give you a recommendation. They don't tell you what they're doing good. For instance, the bank rec, they talk about the December bank rec. If they looked at 12 months, does that mean the 11 months were good? I don't know. Maybe our staff know. So what we need to do now is have this firm take what our police department had, take what the state auditor had, and I think we should be able to get access to review their work papers. I would hope we would be able to. And have that firm determine, okay, what was looked at, what more could be looked at, and then ask you, what are you looking for? If you really want a forensic audit where they examine everything for a 10-year period, we don't have enough money for that. I think what we need to do is get a recommendation from a professional on if they think we need a forensic audit, and again, what it would entail and what the scope should be set. And then they should work with you or the Ways and Means Committee or whoever to set those scope. And if it is determined to go ahead and spend the money, I think then we need a different firm to do it. I know there's some benefits of doing it together, but I think then you want a different independent firm to do that. Getting back to the earlier discussion, just a point of clarification, and Patrick was right, and Maureen in their comments. The reason we need to hire a firm to do this and we cannot use our existing firms is our existing financial statement audit, that firm audit the controls that are in place. So they can't put the controls in place and then audit their work. So there is a reason for that in the independence with it. Hopefully I haven't taken too much time, but I really, at the urging of myself, I guess, and some citizens that I've gotten calls from, they said, get up there and give them your opinion. So that's what I'm doing. We've got a great city here. I echo this. We have to work together. I thought we had some tough meetings back with some of the TIFs when I was on the school board, but man, it's nothing like this. Guys, this is getting to the point of being embarrassing. You know, we're in the Post-Dispatch all the time, and it's not good. I don't know if I can answer questions.
I'm going to ask the mayor if you can as a professional. I don't know either. He
Alderman.
is a professional as opposed to.
Alderman Saunders.
When you said you didn't sign the state audit petition, I knew that. I didn't know it was the quality of the audit. I thought it was something about your position. But if that's the reason, that's fine. But it was the only thing available to a
Right,
resident.
I understand it.
I
And
was a
actually,
non-
it took a long time. The problem is, it's a start.
Right.
The finish is what was recommended tonight by the mayor in his opening remarks to get this RFP going. I also think if you show the state auditor, and I might be going out on a limb here because I'm not a governmental auditor or a forensic auditor, but if you show them that you're really going through a good process to get things right and getting the right firm in to do this stuff together, I think they will see the effort in that 90 days and not absolutely want it done. We don't want to hurry this. The other thing with the proposals is, I truly feel in professional services, the lowest bid is not the best bid.
Oh, I agree.
Really vet the people. I would like to help in that process if I could, but professionally, I need to back away from that. But if you do have questions on what a forensic audit should be, what you might think it might need to be, I would be happy to answer questions on a very loose advisory way.
Len, can I ask, when you said those two can't be the same, you're saying the firm that comes to do the internal control management review and the forensic can't be the same firm? Or are you talking about our financial auditor?
They could be the same firm. In my recommendation, I would not want them to be. I don't think you know. Everybody has a different idea of what a forensic audit is on the board, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm recommending is the one that's setting up these controls can review what the other investigators have done. They can also roll the controls that are in place now and see how they've changed from 11 to today, because things have changed. Then through that process, they need to meet with you or the Ways and Means Committee or somebody to give a recommendation of, is there a need for a forensic audit? And if there is a need for a forensic audit, what should the scope of it be? Forensic audits are they're very expensive.
Oh, I know.
Generally, they're done by attorneys and CPAs at partner and manager levels. You don't really get a lot of staff leverage. So it's not like your financial statement audit. You also probably need to have a firm that's used to working with law enforcement, because they can interpret and they know the U.S. attorneys in Missouri, if it's a local firm anyway. You could use the same firm, but if you use a firm to set this scope for a forensic audit, if that's the way you choose to go, and I'm hoping that this firm can be thorough enough in showing you guys what's already been done,
Right.
that you might determine that's enough. We really don't need to look at any more. And they can explain to you what the police department did and what what things were done. A forensic audit, and you've probably had the phone ringing off the wall since it was mentioned, because CPA firms, it's a great moneymaker for us.
Right.
Because the fees are good, and you don't know a lot of times what you're getting into when you start. Whereas a normal financial statement audit, you do. So I think setting of that scope and doing it in an economical, thought-out way would be the way to do it if we do it.
If the professionals determine that a forensic
Well, I don't
audit
think they
is
will
needed.
determine. They can only recommend.
Recommend,
And you
right.
guys have to make the decision. And I think there should be, maybe have them come here
Right.
and make a presentation to the board that the public can hear, because I know a lot of these folks are pretty concerned about it too. And let's take that step. Lastly, we've got to do it without bickering. We just have to look at facts. You're all up here not for self-profit. You're here to serve the community. A lot of you guys have been doing it for a long time, I know. Let's keep that in mind and work together in a reasonable process to get where we want to be.
And I would agree, and I completely agree with that, and I'm fine with moving forward and having, like we say, consultancy about somebody doing the scope, but you were involved in the TIF. there's been, over the course of the years, a lot of distrust that's been brewing, kind of, so to speak. And how do you earn that trust back with the residents? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I don't want. I could go on about
And
an
then
hour
one
about
other,
the TIF.
but I mean, I know you're saying, go in this, but what I wanted to say too, though, is you read the state auditor's report.
I read the state auditor's report.
What
multiple
potential
times.
for fraud do you think existed, or for misappropriation, or wrong, or funds not going where they should go? I don't want to make it
Well, first off,
criminal.
the revenue side, the money coming in generally on a city is pretty tight because it's coming from state and other taxing, the county, et cetera, into certain checking accounts to be used for in different ways. So the other side of it would be the disbursement side. Now, I will add that the credit card, and the time these credit cards were hitting, if you look back, there were a lot of this. The banks were pushing cities, companies, particularly small companies, to go to credit cards because of ease of record keeping, et cetera. At the time, cash advances and all that stuff was out there. Now, most of that's not even available on a credit card for a corporate use or a government use. So if that's the fraud you're looking at, and Chris's, personally, I think, and I've not looked at any documentation, but seeing the letters that the state auditor or the assistant U.S. attorney wrote about the police department and their thorough review, I would be surprised if there was something on Chris that's different. If you're really looking for something else, if there's a project you're concerned about, I've heard the firehouse mentioned. There was a lot of stuff mentioned.
Inventory?
The problem with inventory is if you're going back to 8, 9, 10, it's going to be gone. It's almost a consumable type thing that if you can't get it at the time, it would be hard to get now. That's where we need to spend money and putting the controls in place going forward. And that's why I keep going to this scope setting. If you can zero in, you can do a forensic audit of an area at a reasonable price. If you say, look at everything for 5, 10 years, you're looking at $60,000, $80,000, $100,000.
Thanks, Son.
Basically,
I'm sorry.
You're just saying, come up with a plan before you make the decision.
Right.
Yeah.
There is one thing about our community, too. We talk about architects and engineers. We got a lot of very talented people in our community. I don't think it would hurt sometimes, and I don't think it would be out of line, although I haven't been to Alderman training school, to reach out and just say, what do you think? Or do you know somebody that's good at doing this? Engineering, architecture. Who's a specialist in this area that we should consult with? Use the community. Okay?
Lynn, I got one question for
Sure.
you. What do you think? I know when this first came about, one of the things I suggested to the board was, like a number of other municipalities, set up a finance committee of residents, professionals that live in our community, as another oversight to overlook all our accounting services and even our maybe how to manage our money, those kinds of things. Set that up as another independent. What do you think about that?
I'll look at my corporate world where I've lived most of my life, particularly in the public field with SEC registrants and in the banking world with fiducia-regulated banks. They all have to have audit committees, and on those audit committees, they have to have independent individuals from outside. The SEC actually defines it, or the PCAOB, as a financial expert on that audit committee who's independent, not an employee, not an elected official, not an officer, whatever it might be, to do that. Those folks can also be involved in some of the top-end monitoring that I'm talking about and some of those controls without them seeing more than they probably would need to see. With the use of computers today, you can set up all kind of monitoring devices and get reports, set up things that are out of scope that get checked by somebody, and if it's a higher scope, somebody else. The folks that do this work, and I don't do that, most of them are a lot younger than me, that's the kind of stuff.
Lynn, I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood. I meant set up an advisory committee of residents,
it would be the counterpart of the audit committee of a corporate world.
Right.
And I think that would probably be a good idea.
Right.
The problem with committees, I've always said, is they have to be advisory, or a board needs to be governing, and management needs to manage. And systems do fail, and they almost spiral out of control when we get micromanaging or managing outside of the level we should be in the organization.
Right.
But if they can truly be advisors, that would probably be a good idea.
Right. Okay.
All right, I thank you for your time and patience. Let's work together and get a good plan.
I do one comment. We didn't go without a plan. I mean, the state audit was planned. That's all we can do. I mean, they set the scope. That's all we can do as a non-elected official as far as that goes.
But
So-
now this is in
But I
your
agree,
hands.
and have said that all along. I think that that's the problem up here, is that the professionals don't run the city. It happens more up here. And what happened, like just I said, with Ways and Means, you know, when I refer to them to ask them for like their professional advice as far as setting the fund balance, they'll waver. You know, I want people to give me their what they really think it should be, backed up by facts, and know that we have the ultimate decision. But I don't want them to think that we need to advise them. You know what I mean? The other way around.
Well, okay. I just want to comment on it because when you're dealing, I would say actually, we tend to, from this level, use our professional people to make recommendations to us, and we usually follow that. And I can say that I think you can look back at the record of the city, and we have done that for a long time because that's what we're paying those professionals for. When you're asking a professional, and maybe you can comment on this real quick, but if you're going to ask a CPA what is the right amount of percentage of our fund balance should we have in reserve, they're never going to give you that number. You know, because one, they have professional responsibilities. Again, Lynn, you can correct me after I'm done, but and there are no set standards out there for that. They're only going to make recommendations, and then it's our job as the board to take those recommendations and balance those out and make the ultimate decision. But you know, as far as a fund balance goes, they're not going to tell you what the fund balance for Brentwood should be, percentage-wise. I mean,
generally, we make recommendations.
That's what I'm looking for.
Or we provide data to help you guys make your decisions.
Right.
But as an independent auditor, CPA, we are there to do that function and not to make decisions for the organizations we
Exactly. Right.
serve.
okay.
And just one other thing as far as the committees, and this just a new committee came before us for the Parks and Grant. We need to start reaching out to different people. I mean, some committees, we have the same people on them, and we need to reach out to more of the talent that's available in Brentwood.
And
I
unless
would
you
concur.
ask, nobody's just going
Right.
to volunteer.
Well, that's why I said, you know, like at church, they do that, you know, where you tell your talents, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so even if there's some way we can kind of get a pool going, which Bolo agreed would be good, but it would be nice to have some different vision too.
Okay, I took way too much
All right,
time.
thanks, Lynn.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Susan Ryan, Pine Avenue. I am also a CPA. Seems like there's a whole bunch of us here. And I too was very disappointed with the audit. We do have very complex accounting, and yet at the basics, we appear to have minimalistic process, procedure.
Would you speak up, please?
At the basics, we seem to have minimal process, procedure, and even when people bring issues to you, they're ignored. I am so disappointed that I trusted and believed that this city actually ran well, knew what they were doing, and I spent 6 months asking for help, and information was withheld from me. I get a lawyer to pursue another avenue, and then you tell me that you have the information a month later. I spend $12,000, you don't want to pay me back because the amount of effort that I went through is just outrageous. And to sit here and listen to you bicker like children is beyond my comprehension. I trusted you. I believed you. I thought you were professional. I thought that you had our backs. It's just outrageous. On an individual basis, people tried to help me But collectively, there appears to be some other agenda, avenue, I don't know, whether it's hiding information, but you caused me thousands of dollars that you find that you don't even want to share with me why it is that you wouldn't provide that back to me when I gave you, a huge documentation on it. I'm just so frustrated with having believed you. I am so frustrated with honestly having believed that that's what your jobs were. I go to work, I do my job. I thought that that's what you were doing. I thought that management was supposed to manage, and when I showed you and did my own forensic audit and showed you that you didn't follow code, you didn't share the information with me, you withheld the information, I make another decision, and 2 weeks later you find the information. Oh, you find the information. Was it hiding? I am so frustrated that I wasted so much money and you thought that was okay. You thought that was okay. I understand that each and every one of you want to do a good job for us, but collectively, we are an embarrassment. I am a process and procedure accountant who followed process and procedure and believed you, trusted you, and I honestly feel I was lied to when information was withheld from me. And I struggle with wanting to believe you. I struggle with wanting to believe that we're going to do the right thing. But I sat and I was on the receiving end of things not being done right. So I really am torn whether a forensic audit is necessary or whether it's not. But based on my experience, I would vote for a forensic audit because collectively we are not going down the right path. Anyway, thank you.
I've been asked to read this from Mark Wilson. I don't know his address, but I can get that for you if you'd like. He emailed this to me, and I'm just now picking it up. I've not actually read this, so I'm just going to be reading it cold. To the mayor, a forensic audit is an examination of an organization's or individual's economic affairs, designed for auditors at any level of government, federal, state, or local, responsible for eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse in programs, and tasked with detecting fraud and establishing programs to mitigate future fraud risks. Of course, you don't want to do this. You made that clear when, before you had talked to even a single citizen after the state audit results were released, you announced to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch that it was necessary. Meridian, almost 500,000 lost to date.
Can you clarify that? I'm sorry, what?
I'm just reading
Okay,
it.
okay.
You made that clear before you had talked to even a single citizen after the state audit results were released. You announced to the St. Louis Post that it was unnecessary. Maybe I didn't say that right. Unnecessary. Meridian, almost 500,000 lost to date for your own and the city administrator's utter incompetence in handling this matter. Insurance, since it required passage of an ordinance, it was violation of code and a misappropriation of taxpayer money to accept the benefit, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I do not blame those who came into the benefit in years after the practice began, but you were there from the beginning. You had every opportunity in the world to clean this question up by simply asking your insurer when you began to receive the benefit. TDD funds, you approved the payment of this money of employees as bonuses. Therefore, you misappropriated over $100,000 to taxpayer money. The city has stated that the commercial development and TIF TDD financing has placed the city in an excellent financial position. TM phones, I guess that's T-Mobile phones, 10 to 20 million minimum. C. Meyer, instead of terminating former city administrator Chris Seamanner, you and the BOA foolishly chose to accept his resignation, letting him leave with lucrative vacation and sick pay. You rewarded a thief with our city's money. Not to mention the absolutely heinous decision making throughout the fireman's overtime investigation, irresponsible assignment of charity donations, absolute failure to keep even the minimum level of accounting records, receipts, etc., as evidenced through the lowest possible rating on the state audit. And you still somehow believe that we should still trust you as Jesus did Judas. Well, we can still continue to give you the charity of kindness. However, we cannot continue to blindly put the trust in someone who does not deserve it. And those of you who continue to follow Pat Kelly will have written your respective legacies as well. You want to continue like the sheep to follow the shell of humans, do so at your own pleasure, but please do not at the sake of the citizens of Brentwood. Thank you.
My name is Julie Pozo, 2211 St. Clair, and this is to the board members. In the letter from the Missouri State Auditor, Tom Schweik, he stated, and I quote, "We assess the risk that illegal acts, including fraud and violations of contract or other legal provisions, could occur. I have attended nearly every Board of Alderman meeting in the last 2 years. Right after the mayor embezzlement was discovered, I have watched you hire a new city administrator, a financial director, and an HR person. I have been told these individuals are professionals and that the city felt confident that they would be able to move this city forward. Now you want to hire a company to set our internal controls, and that is good, and that has come about since the audit. If I remember correctly, some of you were not in favor of the state audit. I believe the reason was the cost to the city and that we had already prosecuted Chris Seemayer. But look what the audit found. Thank goodness we had the audit. The audit revealed our shortfalls, and we are forced to fix them. Good thing. And moving forward, we also need to do a forensic audit. The residents deserve to know if there was additional fraud. Simply telling us to move on is not good enough. There is a mentality some of you have that needs to change. Earlier this week, I was watching a news program talking about the recent scandals plaguing the White House, and the host of the show said, "You have to find humor somewhere in this." And she pulled up a clip from the former Hogan's Heroes sitcom. Maybe some of you remember that. And maybe you remember the character Sergeant Schultz and his favorite words, and his famous words, "I see nothing, I hear nothing, I did not even get up this morning." It made me laugh out loud, and the city of Brentwood came right to mind. Unless you vote for a forensic audit to further investigate possible fraud that may have occurred in the past, you will never regain the trust or respect of your constituents. We need to air out any and all wrongdoing, and then and only then can we truly move forward with mutual respect to once again make this city we can all be proud of again.
Denise Sebbing, 2612 Porter. And frankly, listening to that audit, I'm not an auditor, but I've worked in business for over 30 years, and I was appalled that some of the things that I heard. I agree, Anthony. If you don't have anything to hide, why not do the forensic audit? I think you defend yourself by putting people at bay saying, no, we don't need it, we don't need it. But if you're afraid of something coming out, that's why you would say you don't want it. All of you have worked or had to submit expense reports in your own personal jobs. Didn't it once come to mind that maybe you should be doing it for the city too? I mean, these are common sense things. And some of the things that were coming out, not paying bills on a timely manner for the fuel, I mean, if that were your own money, I can't imagine that you would be letting that money go out like that. Why do you think it's okay to waste our money? We need a forensic audit to find out why people, first of all, what they're afraid is going to come out, and secondly, what else has been taken from the residents. Thank you.
Hi, Bob Brown, Middlesex Avenue. If I work in a financial services firm, and if I got a poor audit rating, our department would probably be terminated. Just to settle it for you guys. Secondly, if I were in that financial services firm and we did have that audit, we would drop everything and we would address the issues before we started any other new business. So the whole business about the rec center or other things actually should be tabled. Get your house in order. Figure out where your controls are, figure out where your money's coming in, figure out where your money's going. Once you have that settled, you can represent to the citizens. We've cleared it out. We've got a clean house. We're ready to go. We're ready to create a new city. We're ready to create a healthy environment. That's what you guys want to do. That's what you should be doing. To me, the talk about everything else doesn't even register. You guys should be, like I said, taking this audit seriously. And frankly speaking, from the tone of your conversation, it does seem like you guys are just personal attacking each other, when in point of fact, actually, you guys are managing our city, you're managing our funds. Take that seriously. You guys are in front of the city. And as somebody mentioned before, every time you guys do something like this, it shows up in the St. Louis papers. I mean, let's start with mutual respect. Let's start with a plan, and I agree with you. I think there should be a plan put in place, and that plan should emphasize, hey, we've got problems here. We need to fix them. Let's go through the process, the normal process, and not just a one bid, but a 3-bid process. Get them in here, look at the controls, figure out where we're lacking, shore them up, and then come back to the city and say, hey, we took the audit seriously. We recognize this is a poor audit in the whole state of Missouri. You guys got one of the ratings. I'm shocked that you guys are talking about the rec center, and you're taking pot shots. It's really, it's almost beyond comprehension. I know somebody else used that, but I don't think you guys recognize how deep you really are in this. I really would like to see some serious discussion coming from this panel. It's really disturbing. So that's all I have to say.
My name is Cindy Pennington. We live at 8780 Pine Avenue. And this is really kind of good for me because I've never been politically minded. I'm sorry to say, because I should be. For whatever reason, my husband and I differ on so many different political ways. So it just really doesn't come up in our house for marital harmony, I guess you could say. But I'm looking around this room, and I know so many people here. I know Nancy Stoverink, who is our early childhood director. I know my neighbor Karen. She's awesome. Everybody in this room. The good old boy system, let's rename it to like the good girl, the good boy, better system. Okay? So I promised myself I wouldn't get up here because when I talked at the state audit, I tend to ramble. And I spent a lot of sleepless nights after that thinking, oh my gosh, did I just sound like an idiot? No, I don't think so. You know why? Because I'm here tonight. My husband just got off a plane from his job. I rushed over. I'm here tonight not to make any friends because I think I already have friends. And you know what? I'm at a point in my life where I really don't care what someone thinks about me. I'm here tonight for my children who hopefully will stay in this town and enjoy the benefits of everybody in the room, everybody up on the stand. Let's pull together. And I am not a gossip. I like to state facts. And frankly, after I finished making my statements at the state audit, Mayor Kelly, I've talked to you just casually at events, the Brentwood Days. I know it's renamed. I'm very nervous right now because I want to say to you, Mayor Kelly, that after I finished my comments, you came to me and asked, could we speak about it? And I said, sure, although I'm thinking, what do I have to say? Like, I'm just a housewife who owns a small business who keeps really damn good records because my accountant told me I have to. And I keep them in a shoebox. And you know what he told me? Cindy, you don't have to do that. You don't have to, keep every receipt for every meal, but I want to make sure I'm doing everything right. I do. And so what you said to me, you were saying Here's why we didn't bid out the fire department, something about $3.7 million. My head was swimming. There were so many people crowded in the hall. And I said to you, I don't even know what you're talking about. Oh, okay. And so then it was a receipt thing about travel expenses. And once again, I was just there to, to try to make some sense of all these rumors I'm hearing and facts, fiction, whatever. But the point is, and this is the truth, and I'm facing you as a citizen, the point is, you said something about, I bought a ticket for my wife, and I gave them a check. And once again, I think I know I said to you, I don't even know what you're talking about. And you said, well, it's just I had my receipt. I said, when I have receipts, I also have to fill out forms. And you said, nobody told me I had to. And then I said, well, then you need to fire whoever isn't telling you that. And that's what I wanted to say tonight. And I also wanted to say about Chris Seemeyer, he was a personal friend of my husband's. And I think Chris had a problem. I think he was ill, had some sort of a gambling thing. My husband, Craig Pennington, was a very good friend of Chris's. He was a roommate in college, and he really liked the guy. And I am not upset with Chris Seemeyer because I think we all have our issues, and it was handled. What I'm upset about is that nobody caught the fact that, I don't even know how to say how it was missing, but 30 grand, I would know if $10 was taken from my debit account. And thank you so much for listening to me tonight, and I'm probably going to wake up tomorrow morning saying, oh my gosh, why did you get in front of the microphone? But I did it because I just want to set it straight. Let's all, Andy, you're awesome. You are on the Cub Scout. You know what I mean? All these people, Cindy, Maureen, I just got to know you. I mean, we do have such a benefit at this point. I see it as a turning point. I see it as no different than when a new president's elected and you get this inspiration that our country's going to be better. We have an awesome town. And whatever needs to be happening with the forensic audit, I'm not an accountant. I'm not. I just feel like if that's the way we should go, I heard, I think he left. I don't know who the gentleman was that came up who seems to have a lot of experience. Whatever, I mean, if I need to sign something saying, and then I will say yes, let's do it. Let's just put it all behind, because Chris Seemeyer was a good guy. He did something, he was sick, he did something. That's not the point. The point is, it should have been detected. And I would like to know what else needs to be detected, personally. So, because I did hear the state auditor say at that meeting, yes, there's a wide open, I'm not going to quote him, but the hole is wide open. We need to close the hole. We need to be a really great town. All of you guys up here are working your tails off, and all the other people, and I really appreciate it. I do. I just feel like, as a mom, as a citizen, I just want it to be better. So thank you very much. And I hope I do sleep well tonight.
Are comments possible about Girls Hope, Boys Hope?
It's public comment. You can come up and address the board, please.
First of all, I think we need a forensic audit.
You could give us your name and address, please.
Kathy Beckman, 1526 East Swan Circle, Brentwood Forest. I've lived there 25, 30 years. I am very upset that we're even thinking about doing Boys Hope, Girls Hope, only because the people that are running that program have figured out a way to reduce their cost. That's the only plus, is it reduces their cost. They're going to put 20 teenagers in 3/4 of an acre, and that's the grounds. That doesn't, I can't imagine how small it's going to be. I don't care what they build. The students, the teenagers, this cannot be good for them. Not 20 girls or 10 boys and 10 girls in confined spaces like that. I know that there's a problem with enter and what do you call it? Egress and going in and going out. To go north on Brentwood's going to be terrible, and they'll probably end up with no left turn sign there, which means then they're going to have to travel around through just the
neighborhood.
What'd you say?
The neighborhood.
Thank you. I can't imagine that. First of all, I'd like to know if they have any success with 20 teenagers over a year's period. And I don't know if it's just the one that's out in Chesterfield and the one in Kirkwood. But I think well, I'm against it. And I don't speak in public, so this is...
That's all right.
Uh-oh, it went away. Well, I don't know. That pretty well does it.
Okay.
Oh, there was a gentleman at the very first meeting where they talked about this that I did not attend, who grew up in a group home. And his first comment was, it will never work with that amount of children in an area like that. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hold the applause.
Christine Lewis on Pine Avenue, 9343. I too promised I would not get up here, but now I definitely will. So for those of you who know me, my name is Christine Lewis. My husband and I live on Pine Avenue with our 2 little girls who attend Brentwood School District. We love our neighborhood and we love our schools. As many of you are aware, the Boys Hope Girls Hope proposal to build 2 homes on the properties of 8815 and 8817 Madge Avenue has caused considerable controversy. From the very beginning, there were concerns being shared throughout the entire community, from those going door to door to others using social media. Residents were concerned that Boys Hope Girls Hope would be building a home for 20 troubled teens, 10 boys and 10 girls under the same roof with little supervision. Some residents were concerned that it was affiliated with a religious organization. Others were concerned that Boys Hope Girls Hope would enjoy the public services of the city of Brentwood with no financial investment in the community, the city, or the school district. One of the biggest concerns has been the impact Boys Hope Girls Hope would have on our school district. The people with the most concerns have been those who live closest to the site on and around Madge Avenue. Of course, these are the people who will be affected in ways that others cannot possibly understand. I've had the opportunity to meet some of these people. These are good people who care about their property level and their street. Their concerns include parking, traffic, noise level, and whether or not Boys Hope Girls Hope homes will fit in with the existing homes on their street. Residents have many different opinions as to whether Boys Hope Girls Hope should be allowed to build their homes on this site. Many have actively shared their opinions, going to meetings, contacting their aldermen, going door to door, or sharing through emails and other forms of written communication. Unfortunately, as opinions are shared throughout the community, sometimes inaccurate information is shared, sometimes even by our leaders. It is my opinion that when this happens, people do not give Boys Hope Girls Hope the chance. The facts must be shared with the community. Brentwood residents deserve to know the facts. Who are these children? Is the organization somehow affiliated with a religion? And if so, does this benefit or harm our community? Will the Boys Hope Girls Hope homes fit in with the existing homes on Madge Avenue? Will there be an increase in traffic, and will it be significant? Will there be an increase in parking on the street? Will there be a negative impact on our schools, and if so, how? Would all the children attend public schools, or would some attend private schools? If the children were to attend Brentwood schools, do we have room to accommodate more students? And if so, how many students could we accommodate before having to hire an additional teacher or adding more space? Would our school district receive a tax credit? Have we considered the recent passing of Prop K and the many tax-paying residents who don't use the public school, a factor that might contribute to the financial status of our school district? Have we considered what the representatives from Parkway and Kirkwood have shared regarding their experience educating these kids? How will 20 teens, 10 in each home, be supervised? How are the homes structured, and what type of routine do the children follow? Why does Boys Hope, Girls Hope want this location? Would our tax dollars be supporting this organization? Are we somehow donating to a charity? Would Boys Hope, Girls Hope truly have no financial investment in our city or school district? And would this truly be a financial burden for us as Brentwood citizens? Other questions that should be considered would include, how long has this site been vacant and undeveloped? What would the cost be to make necessary repairs on the property? The big sinkhole. If left untreated, is it possible that sinkhole might cause extensive damage to the properties, the streets, or the water supply? Is the matter of property value increasing or decreasing a fact of opinion? Would some feel their property value would increase if a commercial business were to develop there? And if so, is it even possible for a commercial business to develop there? Do the experts feel that it's possible? And would a single family desire to build on that site, taking into account that large amount of money that they would have to put forward the repairs? For me personally, I have several questions for you regarding the criteria and standards that you follow when voting on different issues. When voting, do you represent the members of your ward, or do you represent the members of all 4 wards? And are you guys consistently the same? To what degree is your vote based on opinion, including your own? Have you worked hard to get the facts, sharing the facts with others from your wards? Where do you get your facts? Do you get them from strong supporters or residents who strongly oppose the issue, or directly from the organization? Have you taken the opportunities to learn more about this organization? Have you encouraged the concerned residents to take these opportunities as well? Will you carefully consider the recommendation given by Planning and Zoning and the Board of Adjustment? Will you consider the results that the studies have done by the experts hired to assess areas of traffic, parking, and landscape? Will the issue of Boys Hope, Girls Hope be considered as a separate issue from the controversy of the past few years? I hope so. Finally, is there even a set of criteria and standards in place when voting on different issues? And will you, as the Board of Aldermen, be required to support your position, openly sharing your reasons with the members of the community? I have to say, I have so much respect for those residents as well as leaders who continue to keep an open mind, working hard to get the facts, taking the opportunities to tour the homes in the 2 current locations, Town and Country in Kirkwood, as well as taking the opportunities to meet and visit with the kids. I respect those who don't listen to the gossip throughout the neighborhood, but make an effort to get the right answers, the facts, before forming an opinion based on many different views being shared. I especially appreciate and respect those who live closest to the site, who continue coming to all the meetings, sharing their concerns, and keeping an open mind as the Building and Zoning Committee, along with the Board of Adjustment, do their job gathering information, addressing the concerns of residents, bringing in experts to address the areas of traffic, parking, and landscaping, while working with Boys Hope, Girls Hope to make accommodations that will be best for the community. No one knows what recommendation the committee will make in the end, but in my opinion, from attending these meetings and listening to the members of the committee, I feel they are doing their best to address all the concerns of the residents, especially the ones on Madge.
In my opinion, their recommendation will be based on what is best for the entire community of Brentwood, even if it's not what I want it to be. The one thing that both sides seem to agree on is the opinion that Boys Hope Girls Hope is a wonderful organization that continues to make a positive difference in the lives of children. Doesn't this type of organization deserve a chance to be heard? As one of the many strong supporters of this proposal, I ask each of you to give Boys Hope Girls Hope the opportunity to be heard. Please don't base your decision to support or not support this proposal based on all the opinions of those around you. Give Boys Hope Girls Hope the chance to show who they are and what they will bring to our community. And finally, it is my hope that as our leaders, each of you can put your own personal opinions aside, keeping an open mind while addressing the concerns, working hard to get facts, taking the opportunities to meet these kids, and carefully considering the recommendation that will be given in the end. It is extremely important for you as our new leaders to help us regain the trust that has been lost. Thank you.
Okay.
For people who don't know me, my name is Steve Despina. I'm Chief of Police. First of all, I'm not up here to discuss at all your decision, whether it be you decide to have a forensic audit, internal audits, but only because the fact is that the presentation that was made on May 7th prompted me to write this letter. On May 7th, I attended the meeting at the Recreation Center for the presentation by the State Auditor on the City of Brentwood. State Auditor Thomas Schweitz presented his findings and distributed a written report. During his presentation, Mr. Schweitz referred to issues with timesheets under Section 3.3 of his report. He stated, quote, "A police department employee timesheet for the period ending September 20, 2011 indicated 10.5 hours of comp time, and a summary section of the timesheet had this amount crossed out and replaced with 15.75 with no explanation," and it was, quote, "This statement is both false and misleading since the State Auditor's Office failed to contact me or anyone at the police department to discuss the timesheets or anything else. It is no surprise that someone could have had a question on a timesheet. However, I am surprised a trained auditor would have made such a basic error. I have reviewed the timesheet in question, have it with me for anybody who wants to see it, which I have available, and it blocked out the name. The timesheet shows the employee worked his day off, entered 10.5 hours in the comp time column, which was initialed and approved by his supervisor. I personally reviewed the timesheets in our department and then forwarded them to the payroll at City Hall. I placed 10.5 hours in the summary section. Because the number of hours worked in the work period triggered overtime, I recalculated the comp time pursuant to city policy, state and federal law at time and 1/2, which equals 15.75. 10.5 times 1.5 equals 15.75. I entered the correct comp time in the summary section and crossed out the 10.5. The final report needs to be corrected. No one from our department has taken or been given any pay that they were not legally entitled to receive. I take great pride in our department and for the state auditor to make an uninformed and inaccurate statement reporting that overtime was miscalculated or inaccurately filed is completely unacceptable and casts a bad light on our department. Thank you.
Okay. I'll close public comment. And I will address a couple things and maybe a good lead-in by the chief. First of all, I think we, the board, the entire city, all of our employees are taking the state audit very seriously and want to rectify any issues that have been developed. I too have, I don't want to say issues with the state audit, but I think a lot of the things that were in there, a number of the things that were in there can be explained, or if had been asked, could have been explained. For instance, the comment was made, or the one finding was made, with respect to that we had 8 automobiles that have less than 2,000 miles a year, and are they necessary? Well, I can tell you, once we found out what the list of those 8 vehicles were, it turns out it's our large dump trucks that we use in public works. They're not going to get more than 2,000 miles a year on them. We use them for hauling material and those kinds of things when we're doing construction work. And then the other primary use is for plowing snow during the winter and hauling the salt. So they're not going to get that many miles per year. And so that's an example. Another example was the reference to the assistant city administrator and the city administrator with mileage, with compensation for mileage, or that they got a car allowance every month. That car allowance was not based on mileage. It was based on part of the benefit or part of the pay that they were getting in those positions. Again, we could have given them more wages when they're hired, or we could have given them a car allowance. So we negotiated and give those people at that level a car allowance for the jobs that they do. The city administrator, the only reason she was getting a car allowance that first year was because we were putting a car into the budget. We'd always supplied a car for the city administrator before, so for that time period in between the time we got the new car, had a budget and got a purchase, we did give the city administrator a car allowance. It didn't have anything to do with mileage. Another one, Cindy, and I apologize for maybe talking to you right after the meeting. There was a lot going on. But the reason I did want to talk to you is because you had expressed concern about the bidding. And I wanted to stress that with the fire department, that was bid out, and it was bid out properly, and the documentation was here at City Hall. And the other thing that, again, I'm sorry, but I take it personally, is in the state audit when they made reference to the fact that the city, the mayor's credit card had $1,400 of unaccounted charges for hotels, convention, and travel. The reason, and again, might not be good reasons. I will be the first one to admit, anybody who knows me, I am not a paper person. But in this instance, I had made reservations for 2 conferences that I was planning on attending that year in January. All of this was on one credit card statement. I did purchase, my wife was going to travel with me to one of the trips. I reimbursed the city for that airline ticket. What the state auditors were asking for, and again, if anybody that has purchased an airline ticket on, with your credit card, it will say Charles Kelly, which is my first name, St. Louis to Washington, D.C., and the dates of the flight. That's what I had always used in the past to verify what those expenses were being used for. What the state auditors were suggesting is that I needed to turn in a receipt along with that credit card bill for that airline ticket. I didn't know what a receipt for an airline ticket was. What the suggestion was is I turn in the future, a copy of my boarding pass. So of that $1,400, $1,100 of it was the 3 airline tickets, one of which was a purchase for my wife and is documented. And in the email that they sent to the city asking for clarification on this on February 1st of 2013, they do document in the email from the state auditor's office, they do say that they have evidence that the mayor reimbursed the city for his wife's ticket. One of the other things that was on that receipt was $169, I believe, $167 for a part of the hotel reservation because it was a deposit for a hotel for the conference that I was going to be attending. I didn't have a receipt for that because I had done it online. I had made the reservation online, but it was documented in the credit card statement what it was for, and I documented that and signed it. Another item that was on there for $50 was a $50 for a conference registration that was actually reimbursed on that same statement because I didn't have to actually pay for that, I found out, because I was chairman of the committee for the ICSC that the conference I was attending, so I didn't have to pay the $50 for the registration, so they reimbursed it. But they wanted a receipt for that. And so I just wanted to be clear that, again, when you read something in an audit report, and I think they did a very thorough job if they're asking these kinds of questions. But I think that there was logical explanations for that. In the future, I'll turn in a copy of my boarding pass. And I did say I hadn't been asked for that before, because I'm confident and I feel that when I turn in my credit card bill that they can look at that and see what that's for and know that I attended those conferences and that's what I was doing on behalf of the city of Brentwood. And so that's what I was trying to explain to you that night, and because I do take it personally. It's our reputations that we're talking about. And I feel, again, that I try to do the best I can for the city. I'm not a paper person, and if it was ever asked of me to do that, or I felt that was what was needed to verify those expenses, I certainly would have done it. With that, and I know our city administrator had kind of a quick summary of some of the things that we've done also as well as we go forward. But I think the things I commented on shows you how deep into our budget and our expenses that the state auditors went. And I think it is frustrating to a certain extent because some of these items that came out in the final audit weren't addressed in the draft audit, so that we could have actually maybe made comments on them before the state actually published their final report. One of specifically these items were that I talked about, and we told them about the trucks, but they left it in there. But in the defense of the police chief, that wasn't even brought to us in the draft report. At least I didn't remember seeing it when I saw it. But Alderman Lady.
If I may chime in, Your Honor.
Yes, absolutely.
What the mayor is telling you on the credit card statements, I personally did review prior to the state audit even being asked for. Mayor Kelly did buy passage for himself and his wife, and he did reimburse. And what nobody seems to pay attention to, the date of his reimbursement of those checks were the date that the bill from the credit card company arrived here at the city. It was not the date that the bill was due from the city to the credit card companies. As soon as it was known what that true value was, he had that check here for the city. So nobody financed it up in front of him or any of that. He did have it documented on each of the credit card statements that they raised. And he was up front and ahead of the game, not behind it.
Well, actually, to be quite frank, I actually had left a blank check signed by me made out to the city of Brentwood for the amount because I wasn't sure how much it was because I didn't always get the credit card statements. They came to the city at that point. So I actually left a blank check signed made out to the city of Brentwood so that they could fill in the amount for that ticket when they got the receipt or got the credit card bill.
I just want to add, I think you presented documentation that showed it was good faith and there was no fraud. But you do need to give those receipts in.
And I agree. I mean, if I had known that, I would have done it, and I will do it in the future. I don't have any problem with that, but I just want people to understand that a lot of things that were talked about and came out in that state audit, it wasn't that we were trying to do something wrong. It's just that, to be honest with you, it wasn't something we had done in the past. If we need to make those improvements, that's what we need to do, and we're willing to do that. And Bullet, maybe, and I know it's late, we've got other things still, but maybe if you want to go over some of the other major things that we've already taken care of since 2011.
I just want to say briefly that we have quite a long road ahead in establishing trust. When I accepted this job, I knew it would be a challenge, and I knew I was up for it. What I wasn't prepared for is just how much of a challenge it is. But I'm up for it. I'm a professional. I've been in this field for 21 years. Let me rest assure you that under my leadership as city administrator and with the staff that the city has and with the support of the mayor and board of aldermen, and hopefully with your support as well, we're going to do everything in our power to reestablish trust. If the internal control request for proposal is approved by the board, we would like to pursue that. There are many things we need to clean up, and all the staff members are committed to doing it. I want to encourage you, go back and read the audit report. The auditor may not have mentioned things that we have done, but he said in certain terms City administration is committed to improving all of this, and I want to give you a 100% guarantee. My credibility rests on it. Hopefully, I'll be like other city managers who work in a place for 25, 30 years. That's never really guaranteed, but for as long as I'm here, my name rests on it. Akande, A-K-A-N-D-E. It's not a very common name. But I want to assure you that the City of Brentwood has been and will continue to address the recommendations presented by the State Auditor on May 7, 2013. As stated in the audit report, it is important to note that we have improved. We will continue to improve our processes and procedures. We're following up on the items where the auditor recommended further examination be done by the city. I intend to submit to the State Auditor's Office every 30 days until those 90 days are up, all the steps that we're taking to make improvements. Thank you.
Yeah. Alderman Nguyen. Yeah, actually, why don't we take a 5-minute break and then we'll try to wrap up the rest of our agenda. Thank you. Okay, we are back in session. If I could have a motion for the first and second readings of bills number 57, I'm sorry, 5757 and 5759.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second, Your Honor.
All in favor, first and second reading only, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. First reading of bill number 5757, please.
First reading bill number 5757 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Brentwood, Missouri authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute an agreement between the City of Brentwood, Missouri and Gershenson Construction Company, Inc. for pedestrian transit improvements and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay. Actually, we'll skip the synopsis. This is, again, Gershenson is replacing the contractor. We already have been over that with the bid portion of it. So any questions with respect to that? Okay, second reading, please.
Second reading bill number 5757 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Brentwood, Missouri authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute an agreement between the City of Brentwood, Missouri and Gershenson Construction Company, Inc. for pedestrian transit improvements and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Motion?
Motion to perfect Bill 5757 into ordinance form, Your Honor.
And second? Motion was made by Alderman Lay, second by Alderman Nguyen. Roll call, please.
Alderman Harper.
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes.
Alderman Robertson.
Yes.
Alderman Toohey.
Yes.
Alderman Lay.
Yes.
Alderwoman Manister. Yes. Alderwoman Saunders.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bill number 5757 is now ordinance number 4430.
First reading of bill number 5759, please.
First reading bill number 5759 by title only, an ordinance amending Chapter 13 of the revised Code of Ordinances of the City of Brentwood, Missouri by adding a new Article 15 as it relates to the proper management of a residence or other private property in the City of Brentwood and the supervision of persons thereon, providing for the current maintenance of this code, providing for the repeal of all conflicting ordinances, and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. Synopsis, please.
Bill number 5759 is social hosting. This bill is an ordinance amending Chapter 13 of the revised Code of Ordinances of the City of Brentwood, Missouri by adding a new Article 15 as it relates to the proper management of a resident or other private property in the City of Brentwood and for the supervision of persons thereof. This bill is sponsored by Alderman Harper. The Public Safety Committee did not have a quorum and were unable to meet on Thursday, the 15th of May. Yeah.
Okay.
Question, Your Honor.
Alderman Lay.
If this bill is not currently passed as written, under our current codes, would not the property owner still be responsible for what went on the properties? Serving minors underage, loud or obnoxious noise for the ordinance for nuisance and public disturbance?
I think what this puts in is some other guidelines for how they are actually handled for the violations. So to answer your question, yes, there could, but this is putting, I think, monetary. Correct. Right.
Currently, if I get cited for having a loud party at my residence, even though my son is hosting the party, and he's under the age of majority, so I'm cited, I come to municipal court. Does not the judge assign me a fine and a violation and court costs for having a peace disturbance? Now, I get fined the fines to the code. I do not get charged extra charges for police dispatchment and all of this.
Right.
Is that the big difference between this and current code?
This is different than a peace disturbance issue. This is addressing what we call social hosting, where a parent or a guardian, someone of legal age, supplies alcohol to kids at their house and they're having parties. This came out of a substance abuse or committee with the school district made up of parents and some school officials, the National Alcohol and Drug Abuse, and some of the other municipalities around St. Louis have added ordinances like this to address the issue. And it's a way of the city putting a stamp on it, saying it's not okay for adults to supply minors with, alcohol. It's been I don't want to say a common practice, but it's been known around Brentwood that there are certain parents who have these kids over on their property and they know the alcohol's there. They either supplied it or someone's brought it in and they're not stopping it. So this gives the police another tool to go out and address that and to put an end to some of these things. It's just one tool in a bigger picture of trying to address underage drinking and alcohol and drugs.
So what exactly is the mechanism in place they don't have? I mean, that's illegal already. What exactly is the
You'd have to ask the
mechanism?
police chief. I
they
don't
would
want
have?
I think I can address some of that. The mechanism in place is basically, and I won't go through the entire detail, but if the police receive a call to a residence where there is underage drug or alcohol use going on, in addition to whatever other actions they can take by way of minor in possession, peace disturbance, or whatever, they can also issue a notice to the property owner or to the responsible adult indicating that they've been there and they need to disperse. And if they don't, on a subsequent return to that residence that night later, weeks later, they will be held responsible for the costs of that call. The police officers, ambulance, whatever has to go out.
I've got a question. You mentioned the property owner. What if it's a rental situation?
It's going to be the parents.
Yeah, it would be whoever's
The
responsible.
guardians
for
are
that.
at that property.
It addresses rental
Well, what I'm
properties.
thinking is Brentwood Forest, we've got a lot of rentals.
Mhm.
Someone might be 23. They're going to have a friend over that's 20 or 19. They might drink alcohol there. Is this written so that the renter would actually be punished and not the landlord that's renting it out and has no way?
Right, that, I don't want to speak for Frank, but I would believe it would be the person who's renting that property.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure.
It
They
is.
have knowledge of it.
The occupant.
Right.
It covers owner occupied and renter occupied.
Okay. Now, what about the noise? Is the noise going to be just having the police show up for noise disturbances? Is that going to be part of this, or are you just primarily looking for substance
This
abuse?
is for the consumption of alcohol.
Okay.
Okay. While you're thinking, second reading.
Second reading, Bill Number 5759 by title only, an ordinance amending Chapter 13 of the Revised Code of Ordinances of the City of Brentwood, Missouri by adding a new Article 15 as it relates to the proper management of a residence or other private property in the City of Brentwood and the supervision of persons thereon, providing for the current maintenance of this code, providing for the repeal of all conflicting ordinances, and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Alderman Harper.
Second.
Motion is made by Alderman, second by Alderman Harper. Roll call, please.
Alderman Harper.
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes.
Alderman Robertson.
Yes.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderwoman Manister.
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Yes.
Bill number 5759 is now ordinance number 4431.
Great, thank you. We have three resolutions tonight. First resolution 993. Synopsis, please.
Resolution number 993, the consumption and sale of beer, wine, and liquor during the city's annual Madden Fest Festival at the Brentwood Park on Friday, September the 20th, 2013, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., and Saturday, September 21st, 2013, from noon to 10 p.m. This resolution would allow the consumption and sale of beer, wine, and liquor. Motion to approve Resolution 993, Your Honor.
And second?
Second, Your Honor.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Resolution 994, Alderman Lady.
The consumption of beer, wine, and liquor at the summer concert series. This is the resolution that would allow for the consumption of beer, wine, and liquor at the summer concert series at Brentwood Park on June 7th, July 5th, August 2nd, from 6:30 to 9:30 each evening. The Brentwood Parks and Recreation and West Community Credit Union are presenting the Sounds of Summer concert series. Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion.
Can I, before
Go
you
ahead.
do?
Is there a date missing?
No, but I was wondering if we could change that back to 5 o'clock instead of 6:30. The reason for that is I think the Chamber of Commerce, at least at one or two of the events, holds an open house or a happy hour that starts at 5 o'clock. And so I think that's the reason it was always started at 5 o'clock previously. So,
In the committee meeting, it was 7 to 9, and we expanded it to 6:30 to 9:30.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was a time limit on it before. But anyway, I think their happy hour starts at 5.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Just to cover that.
Motion to change the 6:30 start time to 5 p.m. on the 3 nights cited.
In a second?
Second.
This is just for that change. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Now a motion, please.
Motion to approve Resolution 994 as amended.
In a second?
Second, Your Honor.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Thank you, Lee. Sorry. Resolution 995, please.
Resolution 995, the consumption of beer, wine, and liquor at the Veterans Day observance service and the annual holiday open house. The resolution would allow the consumption of beer, wine, and liquor in the City Hall, Brentwood City Hall, on Monday, November the 11th, 2013, beginning at 2 p.m., and the annual holiday open house on Tuesday, December the 10th, 2013, beginning at 5 p.m. at the Brentwood Rec Center. Your Honor, does the resolution need a termination time on each of the 2 days? Starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday of Veterans Day.
It's Monday.
It's Monday.
Monday.
For December.
Yeah.
Okay, to work with. Do we need a close time? I mean,
Well, it's when it ends. I mean, we're not sure what time we're going to hold the event, whether it be in the afternoon or
Okay.
in the evening. So,
that was the only comment I had on this
Okay.
resolution.
we have motion then?
Motion to approve Resolution 995.
Second.
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No. Ms.
I would
Lee
like-
Wynn was no. And then go ahead.
I would like to make a statement. Somebody said something earlier that's true. Sometimes we don't say how we feel or maybe how we voted. And I want to say that I probably have the longest record voting against alcohol. Went back all the way to 1977 when I first became, 1978 when I became. The only reason I do it is I think there's plenty of time, plenty of places to drink. And I think at some places, we ought to have places where we don't have drink. And, you know, I'm going to go with it. I know I always lose, but I still can. So someone said, make your point. What do you do it for? I just think we have now exploded since 1977, and I'm not going to get in a long tirade because it's not worth it. And I know where most people stand. I'm not standing there. But I just want to let everybody know I think it's a mistake to open up more and more things to alcohol when we have enough problems already. So there.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Lee. Next item 10, accounts against the city. warrant list was submitted. Are there any questions? We have a motion to approve the warrant list as submitted.
I just have one.
Alderwoman Saunders?
Thompson Coburn is high again this month at 7,000. Why is, I mean, is there activity picking up? It was 11,000.
I think part of it, again, I haven't seen the bills, but I think part of it was probably the negotiations for the bill that we, the ordinance that we declined to enter into last week.
Do you think the 11,000 was part of that too?
What
Because
if-
last month's was 11,000.
Well, again, I haven't seen the bills, I mean, but it is ongoing.
I can
with
provide you
respect-
specific details as
Yeah.
to the activities.
Okay, great.
that they
Thank you, Bola.
Yeah,
took
they
part of.
submit a detailed
They
bill,
do.
so, right.
Your Honor, a motion to approve the warrant list in $51,731.47. There are no pass-throughs on this billing.
Okay, and second? All in favor of approving the warrant list as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item, reports of committee and department heads. Under the mayor's report, I do have a couple items. First of all, I want to announce that Terry Shimwig, who has worked for our Public Works Department had his 40-year anniversary this past April, has announced his retirement. He was Jim's assistant and a foreman in the Public Works Department. We're going to be putting that position out to solicit new employees for that position. Jim would like to change that
Project
position
manager.
from a foreman to a project manager. He would be able to give that employee then some additional responsibilities to help but really free up Jim, who is very busy in his regular duties. And so, unless anybody has any issues with that, that's how we're going to advertise that position. It will be a little bit of an increase, I would think, in what the foreman position would pay. But keep in mind, it'll probably be less than what Terry was making, given the fact that he's been here for 40 years. But just wanted everybody to know that, so, yeah.
Right, the position will now require a bachelor's degree in construction management.
Right. So, okay, any concerns, or we'll just let that go? Okay. All right. Next item, just to go back, I was hoping that we could at least pass this phase of the audit or the financial services to help us address our internal controls going forward, and to get this RFP out as soon as possible so we can get it back to start that process. So is that something that we would like to do, at least from the internal control aspects of the financial departments going forward? Alderman Saunders.
I'm willing to make a motion that we have that we put an RFP out for an accounting firm to come in and evaluate our internal controls, and also, though, evaluate, as Len Eschbach said, the potential, if there are other areas that they think warrant a forensic audit, to evaluate that.
We could include that in there. That'd be fine.
It's not
No, again, that would be a separate
looking
thing,
to
I
see
think,
if
is
we
what
need
we were
an audit.
saying,
Is
right?
that what you're saying?
Right. I guess that their firm has that kind of experience.
And that's why, again,
Right.
I'm sure we're going to get a lot of proposals for this, so.
Should we put the word implementation in there as well?
Oh, yeah, I've got
fine.
copies of what we have, and
All right.
if anybody would like, I'm sorry, we can, if you want to look at it and maybe get back, we would like to get this out to bid because we have to get into the county and by Wednesday to get it in Friday's edition, so we can get this moving. So if anybody, if you could take a look at it, if you have any questions or concerns, you can contact Paula or Gina.
Okay.
Oh my God, they already did it?
Well, we got
We have
some
a
from some
draft.
other cities that had to go through the same process. So. Okay. So, Alderwoman Saunders, was that a motion?
Well, it was, but I mean, I haven't read this yet, and this probably wouldn't address the forensics, so.
But
Well-
we're
Don't
going to
we
be
have a
adding the language.
May 30th,
in
we have
there.
Ways and Means. Can we do that from,
There is a Ways and Means meeting on the 30th of May, yes.
at 4:30?
Yes.
My only concern with that is the fact that if we wait till, again, next week to
17th of
do
June
that.
is the
and
next
then-
meeting of the Board of Aldermen.
Well, I got, that's next on my agenda, but, again, we're still going to, if we got it in Wednesday's paper, ask for a 2-week turnaround, and then we have to evaluate those processes. You know, if we wait till the 30th and then advertise it for 2 weeks and evaluate those firms, you know, again, I agree, the state auditors will know that we're moving in that direction, but I would like to get as far down that road as we can before that 90 days. That's why I would like to go ahead with this portion and adding the suggestion. I think that language could be added, an analysis of whether any additional forensic audit is needed to determine if there's any additional fraud. Right.
Let's make sure they know they won't get that. Or would, are we putting a conflict of interest, I guess, just asking a vendor, hey, should we spend more money on something?
Well, that's true.
I mean,
That they would not be able to get that bid for the forensic, which we wouldn't actually get them anyway if they were doing this portion.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear.
Right. Okay.
So that would be added.
Right, that language would be added
To this.
to analyze the forensic audit part.
I'll second that motion then.
Okay,
Your
thank
Honor,
you.
if I may.
Alderman Leahy.
Page, it's 1, 2, 3, page 4, section 4, award of contract. By doing this change, we put a budget, projected budget not to exceed 15,000. Does that need to be changed if we're changing the potential scope? I would hate, I'd love them to stay way under it, but I don't want to ask them for something and then all of a sudden give them a scope that says, no, guys, you can't get there.
Here's what I would suggest. First of all, I think it was stressed that we need to look at the qualifications of the firm.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I think what would happen is if we got to that point and they came back and said, we need to increase the amount, I'd rather negotiate up a little bit and keep this number lower instead of them just billing us for 20,000 to start with. I think, does that make sense?
I think they will be able to tell us what they can do for this
Right.
amount. And if the board should decide that more needs to be done, then we could
could
revisit
add
the
it.
budget.
Okay, so it doesn't create a barrier.
I
Because what I'd hate to do is get 12 bids back saying, sorry, your scope exceeds the projected budget, so we know quote, and we disqualify people.
We'll
because-
add language in there to cover that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not certain, I agree that we should put a limit. Do you know what I mean?
Well-
That's what Len was just saying, being able to evaluate the firms. I mean, can't they give us like kind of a fee basis, or is there some way that?
Professional services, don't we get limited as to looking at fee?
Well, that's another thing with the audit, when you're dealing with, you know, an RFQ opposed to an RFP, you know, which is a proposal for qualifications, then you would not even put in a number because you're supposed to look at the quality of the professional services such as accounting. Accounting is a little bit different. We
I
usually
think
do put numbers.
I think an RFQ, that sounds like, because it seems to me that was the main point that Len was stressing, and that there's a lot of accountants, but get a good quality firm. Is that what?
That's fine.
Did anyone hear that, or?
Right. Do you just change that to an RFQ and leave the number out? Does that make sense, Paula?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we're going to make certain that they have the potential to do a forensic. They have that as part of their.
Not their firm specifically, but they're going to analyze whether they think we should go forward with that.
Okay. But I guess they have to have the qualifications. We may select two different from all of this. Do you know what I mean? One to evaluate that.
I
and
think
one
if we want to
evaluate-
do that, we would go out for a different RFP. I think what the gentleman said was best practices don't hire the same firm to do it.
Okay.
So they would never be the one the city would hire.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
You have a first and second.
Yes. Roll call, please.
Alderman Harper.
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes.
Alderman Robertson.
Yep.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderwoman Bannister.
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Yes.
Okay. Next item actually was the date of our next meeting is scheduled for the third Tuesday of June, which is the 17th. I was going to ask the board if we could move that up to the following, or the Tuesday before that meeting. In order, right now I'm scheduled to be out of town that week, and I would like to attend that meeting. Otherwise, I'll have to change my vacation. But
Tuesday, the 11th of June.
the Tuesday, the 11th of June, opposed to the 17th. The 17th is our regular meeting, yes. Move it to the 11th of June. Okay. We'll make it. Sorry about that when we. Yeah, we would. We'd have to do that. But again,
Speaking to the microphone.
didn't realize that when we scheduled our vacation. So, okay. Sorry about that. Can't do it on Monday because we always run into
Court, yes, court's in there, but I'm trying to think, there's nothing else that I'm not aware that we have any conflicts.
Not on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So would we be meeting at 6, correct?
We still meet at 6
Okay,
for the
okay.
park. Yes.
Oh.
Your
let's see,
ward
is that
meeting
the
is the
second
11th?
Tuesday, yeah, my ward meeting is the 11th. What, the 10th is court, is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
court night.
Should we do it June 3rd?
Well, that's not that far away. We just don't want to have that much business between now and then.
That and you'll have a posting report.
We could do it the
requirement.
following Tuesday, the 25th.
The 18th?
No,
Yeah, the
the
concrete.
18th is the following Tuesday.
No, the following week.
Oh.
We could do it the 25th.
That's the last Tuesday of June, and that's my ward meeting.
How about the 18th? What was the 18th? Oh, you're gone then?
I'm gone that
Okay,
week, and
okay.
I mean, I will change my not go.
I'm gone the
No.
18th and
What
the
about the
25th.
Did we not agree to the 11th?
The 12th, the
P&Z.
Wednesday. They have P&Z that night.
And Public Works.
Oh,
It's not on my calendar yet.
How about 13th?
Trying to schedule meetings is the hardest thing.
13th is a Thursday.
Somebody's got something,
No, we don't have Public Works. Public Safety is the third week, so that's the second Thursday.
That's fine, Thursday.
Since we haven't had a meeting in public safety for about 3 months, we may be changing.
Right.
Yeah, you guys know.
So what date are you looking at, Mayor?
The 13th, is that
These guys get
Thursday at
What
6
if-
o'clock?
10th at the community center?
Or, yeah, do you want well, the 10th is the Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Do it at the community center?
The 10th would be great.
That's fine.
What do you
Okay,
have?
we'll do it that Monday then, the 10th.
Wait a minute.
The fellow that would be taking that over would not be able to.
It's not gonna work.
Um.
We just realized that there's another conflict. The auditors are scheduled to present the CAFR. Go ahead.
Oh, did they do a public hearing?
We're trying to schedule a date for Ways and Means so that Showalter and Jabori can present the CAFR to them before you meet as a board. So we were thinking of that week of the 10th to have a Ways and Means Committee meeting and then have them present the CAFR to the board.
Well, how
full board
about
on the
Monday
17th.
the 24th at the rec center?
We didn't like Thursday, the 13th?
Well, we can't get people there.
Oh, okay.
Can't get wouldn't be able to be recorded.
I won't be there, but that's fine. I'm just one person. I'll be out of town. But I'm okay with missing a meeting.
Oh, sure.
Well, you're on summer
Tell you what,
schedule.
I'll go and you can run the meeting. How's that?
No.
Okay. The
So
24th
Monday the 24th,
At the
7
rec center.
PM at the rec center.
Well, 6
Sounds like
o'clock.
6 PM?
for the parks first.
Oh, okay, yes, park's in front of that.
I know.
All right. Can I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
In second.
I'll second it, Your Honor.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Harper?
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes.
Alderman Robertson?
Yes.
Alderman Tui?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bannister?
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders?
Yes.
Thank you for accommodating me. I appreciate it. Next item, public safety. Anything further?
No, we're gonna get a date worked out so we can actually meet.
Okay. Public Works Committee,
No report, Your Honor.
and we have appointment to the board of the 8750 Manchester Road CID. We have to appoint their board this evening. This is an annual process. Are there any questions?
Bola, if I may, in the future, can we get a statement from them as to where they stand on their cost and what they've got in their reimbursements on the CID?
Yeah, we should be able to get that.
Yeah, to work with.
We got that late last year, too.
I asked for it last
Right,
year,
yeah.
and I never got it. And
Really?
I'd also asked for like the inception to date interest, Ellen, from that 8750. You know what I mean? I want to know the interest that, because they were going to do a bond issue, but they said it was so small, so they put up notes. Was that correct?
Well, I remember they did supply some of the information, and the
Mhm.
last we heard from Lori Reichert, she was going to look for the less recent information, and we haven't heard back from her, so I will follow up on that.
Okay, just if they have it, I just.
Thank
I'm
you.
interested. Thank you.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that the board approves the Board of Directors for the CID for the property where the Office Depot and Ace Hardware are.
Okay, thank you.
Second, Your Honor.
All in favor of appointing the board or reinstating the board, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, thank you. One other thing I forgot in my mayor's report, and literally forgot, I had my committee appointment list that I had done. We'll have to do that next month. I didn't change any of the aldermanic committees. I mean, each committee has a lot of things going on, so that all stayed the same. So as just the dates on that. So, but we'll have that at the next meeting. I should have had that here this evening. I left it on my computer. Ways and Means, anything further?
There's
Not
a meeting on
present.
5:30 at 4:30 here in the council room.
Okay, City Attorney?
No report, Your Honor.
City Clerk?
A couple of items, Mayor. The Litzinger Road Improvement Project, staff has scheduled an open house for Thursday, June 14th, from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. here in City Hall. Engineers from Horner Schifrin will be scheduled to attend and meet with all property owners. We are sending notices out to all the legal property owners so that they can attend the meeting and see a schematic of what the roadway will look like, the preliminary design.
Great.
You are all invited to attend.
Good.
Also, we have been working with CH2M Hill, which is the consultant on the Deer Creek feasibility study. We expect that the final report will be coming to the board, the 353 redevelopment board, and the different stakeholders who met with us last fall. But preliminary, they have indicated that there is a federal program called Community Rating System that allows the city to apply to participate in the Federal Emergency Management National Flood Insurance Program. We would submit an application indicating our desire to participate, and they will come and walk the floodplains, review all our ordinances, and assign points. We are hoping, after Ellen and I met with some of the representatives last week in a phone conference, that we can at least get a minimum of about 5% discount for residents and commercial property owners on flood discounts. So we would like a motion authorizing staff to send forward a letter indicating the city's request to participate in
And
this
there's no
program.
cost to the city?
There's no cost.
Right. Okay. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
And second?
Second, Your Honor.
Is there any questions? Sorry, any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Also, staff would like to apply for a trim grant. The funds will be used to document an inventory of all street trees in the city of Brentwood. So I think the program provides reimbursement of $1,000 to $10,000 to grant recipients, and especially those communities that have been designated Tree City USA, which we are one. So Public Works Committee recommends that staff go forward with this application process.
Now, will this be a street tree survey before or after all these storms?
I don't
Depends on
know.
when they start.
We may have nothing
a really
left.
good one over
Right.
on
No, actually,
Hilldale last night.
I did too.
That would be interesting to compare that to our last tree survey that we did, I think, in the late 90s.
Jeez, yeah.
After the couple major storms we've had, there's going to be a significant change, I'm sure.
Motion to authorize staff to proceed.
And
Last,
second?
excuse me. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And
Last item, Eric, do you want to come talk about the Parks and Recreation Master Plan?
Good evening. The Parks and Recreation Department received a grant from Municipal Park Grant Commission to perform an initial assessment of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan last fall. And the department is working with a planning design studio, was selected to work with the department on the assessment. The next step into performing an assessment is to form a working committee. And working with Planning Design Studio, they suggested a number of people with for the planning committee, at least one elected official, at least a committee person, a couple residents, 2 to 3 residents, Parks and Recreation staff, and then staff from another department, just so there's that whole city initiative. Based on that recommendation, we put together a list of 8 people, and I'm not sure if you guys got the memo with you guys. We brought this to the Public Works Committee and talked about a couple of the resident selections, and we're happy to say that Angie Holzhoff had agreed in principle to be on this committee based on the recommendation and approval of the mayor and the Board of Aldermen. So basically, what we're asking for is approval of the working committee so that we can move forward and start having our working committees meetings.
Do we have the list of the?
It was in
I
the-
missed it.
I can read it if you'd like.
Okay, that's fine.
Go ahead for the record if you want to read the list.
The list would be from Alderman Robertson, who's the only person I didn't have a chance to talk to, as the chairperson of the Public Works Committee, Daniel Glowski from the Planning and Zoning Commission, Brad Barbeau, myself, and Sue Cruson from the Parks and Recreation staff, Ellen as the Director of Planning and Development as the other city staff person, Angie Holsoff, and Kent Krimmel as the 2 resident appointees.
Great.
Great.
We have a motion, please?
I move we accept the appointment.
So what happens when you're not there? They appoint you to a committee. We got a first motion is made by Alderman Roberts, second by Alderwoman Sanders. Sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Mayor.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
May I, just one item. My appointment as city treasurer bleeds over to the trustees of the Police and Fire Pension Fund. In addition, I'm also appointed to the Board of Adjustment. Both expire the end of this month, and I have duties relative to the trustee on a early June meeting before you meet. And there's also an opportunity that the Board of Adjustment meeting may have to be rescheduled to earlier in June. So I'm wondering if I could impose upon the board to be at least reappointed for those 2 positions at least through your June. So
Actually, yeah, you were going to be reappointed, and until we take any other action, I think it would be fine.
Right.
But if you want to do that,
Yeah, I
especially
really
Board of
preferred-
Adjustment would be the key one at this
The
point.
Board of the Board of Adjustment would be the key one. At least if I could get reappointed until your next meeting, where you can go through a longer term. But I'm not comfortable serving in any
Right.
capacity on behalf of
I
the city
understand.
after my term expires.
You have a motion, or Ellen?
I'm sorry, but were you going to also appoint another Board of Adjustment member?
Yeah, we need one more member. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Because that, okay.
yeah, I don't have a person that has volunteered yet.
Okay, just thought I'd check.
Ellen, can you address the Litzinger Road project? I mentioned the wrong date.
I'll get it in just a second.
The open house will actually be Thursday, June 6th.
Oh.
Here in City Hall.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to appoint Greg Reinders to fill the position in Board of Adjustment capacity through the end of June.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Third.
The key position, he's the chairman of the committee, so we have to have him there. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thanks, Greg.
Motion to also appoint him to the Board of Pension, or does that one
That'll be
doesn't
fine.
meet?
That's not, yeah.
That's good? Okay.
Board of Adjustment is more of a legal
Yep.
aspect to it.
Because
Okay.
they're meeting on the 23rd, are
All
they
right.
not?
Library, or Excise Commissioner, nothing this evening. Library? Municipal League, nothing further. Communications? Historical Society? We do not have a closed session. Any unfinished business?
No.
Any new business? Alderman Harper?
Yes, I just wanted to give a kudos or a shout out to Brentwood freshman Sophia Rivera, state champion in both the discus and shot put.
I thought she's a freshman?
Yes.
And set some new records on top of it.
Correct.
Yes.
Great kid.
Yep.
Young lady.
Okay. Alderman Leahy?
The Ward 3 meeting for the month of May is May 28th here at City Hall at 7 p.m. All are invited. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
And
Alderman
then
Saunders.
my Ward 1 meeting is June 11th at 6:30 here at City Hall, and everyone's invited.
Okay. If anybody would like to address the board, please come forward and give us your name and address. Hearing none. Thank
Motion to adjourn, Your Honor.
you. And all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you.